Can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening, and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board meeting for March 18th, 2013. Tonight, we do have one public hearing on. We have a pre-application session, and we have a report for our Lowell Comprehensive Master Plan. The first matter we have before us tonight is for public hearing on 401 Bridge Street, 14 and 16 3rd Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Marlowe Building and Design, Inc., seeking site plan review and special permit for development located at the above address. The proposal consists of 2 new buildings and 1 central parking area. One building located adjacent to the intersection of Bridge and 3rd Street presents 2 commercial units located on the ground floor and 4 residential units among the 2nd and 3rd floors. The second building, located currently on 16 3rd Street, proposes a 2-story building with a total of 4 units. The parking area located between the 2 buildings features a total of 19 parking spaces. The proposed project is located in the neighborhood business district and requires site plan and special permit review before the planning board. Under 4.2 for the site plan review.
Mr. Chairman, before you begin, I just want to say I will be abstaining on this matter.
Okay, thank you. At this time, can we hear the case for the applicant, please?
My name is Peter Martlow, 108 Norris Road, Tingsboro, Massachusetts. And I am the owner of the land at 401 Bridge Street, and I have the purchase and sale agreement for the land on 14 and 16 3rd Street.
Do you want to just say anything about the project itself, or?
Well, I've been working with Aaron, with the city for the past 14 months, just about 14 months on this project. We purchased the former Plunkett's Drugstore building lot. I was there when I grew up. I grew up on Christian Hill. And the building burnt down about 5 years ago, and the land was vacant. So we purchased the land from the Winter Hill Bank and wanted to put a 3-story building, mixed use in there with commercial retail on the first floor and residential on the second floor. But we couldn't meet all the parking requirements. So after meeting with the city and negotiating and filling out the paperwork for an RFP, we reached a purchase and sale agreement to purchase the back portion of 14 and 16 3rd Street, which was formerly 2 residential multi-family homes back there that had been torn down, and the city had the land. So in order to make the whole project work, we had the 14 and 16 Bridge Street rezoned to neighborhood business, and our plan is to construct the 4-apartment building on 3rd Street and the 6-unit building on Bridge Street with the parking in between. We've really worked hard on this project. We've gone back and forth. We've had multiple meetings, even with the landscape people in planning and development, and we've tried to solve any issues or problems that came up, and we met with the neighborhood association, for the Centerville Neighborhood Association, and we've got them on board with us because they want to see that corridor dressed up, and they don't want to see any vacant lots there. I do have Patrick Flaherty, who's the engineer for this project. He's with us tonight, along with my partner and his brother. David and Dennis Deegan are both grew up in Centerville on West Street, and Dennis still maintains ownership and has a young son, and he lives in Lower Centerville.
Okay. I know when you hit before us last, you came in, you're going for the zone change. I believe you received that zone change?
We did
before
receive
council?
the zone change, yes.
Because what you had was, so now it's all neighborhood business.
It's
correct?
all neighborhood
And you had
business.
partial
I mean, I
neighborhood-
don't know if it's been recorded yet, but it was,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I double-checked with Aaron. Aaron called our city
Yep.
clerk to make sure. Okay. I just want to put that up there. Have you had the opportunity to look at some of the comments that we received from staff?
Yes, and
Want to
I
address any of those, or anybody from the applicant? I mean,
yeah,
with
if
you,
you
or-
want to go down them one by one, or?
Sure, if you don't mind, because usually if not, one of us on the board is going to ask you those questions.
Yep.
And I know you've had some changes since this came out.
Yes.
Okay.
I think,
I know we have one dated March 8th from Joe, who's with us tonight.
yep, I'll start, let's see, it's page 1 of 3. This is from Joe Janowitz, and this one's from Lisa DeMayo. Is that okay to start with?
Sure,
Right.
yeah, we have that one.
In general, the first one, the contractor needs to apply to city construction permits, that's fine. Engineering office must be contacted, that's not a problem. As-built, so to be electronic, that's not a big deal. City ordinance states that the owner is responsible for sewer connections all the way to the main, that's not an issue. And these, I highlighted the ones that we had to address. No bounds need to be reset or reset. There are a few bounds out there, but a couple of them need to be reset, and we plan on doing that. Driveway permit is required, that standard trench permit is required. Utility connections are not all shown, no detail. That's been finished, and that's in a plan that should have been given to you. There's 2 pages. The second page shows all the details, and we have the utility connections on both buildings there. Vehicle space 11, we're still sort of dealing with that one a little. Our original plan had it diagonally so it would get out a little bit easier, but they didn't like the handicap. Oh, no, I'm sorry, number 11. Number 11 on the plan, we removed that area in the back, and we allow we extended the parking lot, so number 11 can now back up. We had a little bit of a landscape area there, so we took it out. They like the inclusion of the bike rack, the city hours. Let's see. Let's see. Well, basically, the one I had highlighted was the sidewalks. No plans or details have been provided. We redid that on the new plan that you have. The curbing on the city streets must be vertical granite. That's standard. We really don't have to touch any that's out there except for one that's dropped. We need to raise it, so that won't be an issue. All concrete sidewalks must be full panels. Most of the sidewalks over there right now are asphalt paving, so that really doesn't affect us too much. The handicap ramps have a removable detectable warning pads. I'm a little confused on that one. I'll probably have to deal with Lisa on that one, due to the fact that the handicap ramp is already existing there, so I don't know if we're responsible to upgrade it. And there was a question also that they wanted us to do handicap ramps on both sides of the street. I didn't understand that, why we would have to go to the other side of the street. So I didn't understand that.
Let me see if maybe Aaron knows from staff. Maybe we can try to. Aaron, do you have any idea about what the
Yeah, I think I can
Wanna
address
weigh in on that,
the
if you could? Thank you.
handicap ramp issue. Basically, anytime there's a crosswalk in the public way and there's, at least one side, there's an ADA handicap ramp, the other side of the street also has to have a ramp, so someone presumably who's gonna get down off one side can then
it off the other
approach and actually access the sidewalk on the other side of the street. It's kind of a standard comment, as I understand it from the city engineer, that anytime there's a new crosswalk installed, that it'd be provided on each side. I believe, and this would be worth confirming though, because is that there already exists a ramp on each side, and I suspect what the primary element or the key element of this comment from the city engineer is that the handicap ramp should be upgraded to have the detectable warning strip, which has the kind of the bumps on it, so that one can feel the location of the handicap spot. So that would be, I think, the one additional element to this intersection that's not there now.
Thank you. That help answer?
Yeah, so that's something what we'll talk with in planning development, or is that something that we do here?
Either or.
Okay.
We'll see as we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The stormwater calculations have been submitted to you. We did them. The trench drain, it must be moved. We moved it to the private property. We moved it back a few feet. And then the drainage design and the cut sheets from the manufacturer, we submitted a whole new package with all the drainage calculations and the maintenance. So we did all the calculation. We did everything on that page. We did the annual stormwater operation maintenance report. That's all calculated. That's in your package. The contact must be submitted to the engineering stormwater annual operations. I did that. That's on the bottom of that annual stormwater operation maintenance report. Construction site entrance must be shown. We did put that on the plan, but it's only a 12,000 square foot site, so it's not like a construction entrance going into an acre project. So we do have it on the plan, but it's sort of like the whole site is the construction site because it's such a small area. The catchment areas pre and post, location of dewatering and discharge to be shown on the plans. We did that. And the catchment areas pre and post construction must be shown on the plans. Location of erosion controls to be shown on the plans. If you have any questions on that, Pat Flaherty can answer that. Conditions for erosion controls must be checked after every weather event. Repair maintenance must be performed within 24 hours. That's not a problem. Under snow and ice, we did change the storage. That was that parking space that we had on number 11 to back up. So we made that into a larger parking area, and that acts as snow storage. And we put more snow storage along the back easterly side of the lot. Any questions on the engineering part of it?
Not at this time, nope.
Okay.
I think that we had one of them from Division of Plan Development, and then I know we, yeah, okay. If you want to go over those first, and then there was one there from the city engineer, the city traffic, which I think that had something to do with number 11 as well, the parking spot. But if you want to do Division of Plan and Development at this point,
Let's see. What would be which one do you want to go to next?
if you could do from Planning and Development,
Planning and Development.
that one has like
Okay,
12 little comments on 2 pages.
yep.
Yeah, dated March 8th, if you have that.
Yep, general comments, no work shall be commenced until the letter is, the decision letter has been recorded, that's fine. Documents approved by the board or its agents if it shall be made part of the, all the construction specifications, that's fine. The handicap space currently shown does not meet the requirements of the Massachusetts Building Code. We changed that. We had to decrease a little bit on the small area in the back of 401 Bridge Street. We had to make that usable open space just a little bit smaller in order to accommodate that parking area. So we took care of that. This was one I think, Aaron, you and I talked about. Number 4 was the consistent and existing setbacks in the case as indicated on the site plan was 5 feet. I was a little confused on what they were asking for there. That was on number 4.
Yeah,
I think I actually had 4 feet on,
Was it the setback? Yeah. Question, will it be 4 feet or 5 feet? I mean, to be consistent with it.
The comment was in regards to the proposed building being shown at 10 feet, and then on the plan and kind of the chart at the top right, I believe, it indicates that the average setback with adjacent properties is 5 feet.
oh, okay. In other words, the setback, what the city likes to see is the average setback of, they like the buildings to be in line with the existing houses on the street. And that was approximately 5 feet when you look at some of them, because they're right up against the steps for those houses. Some of the steps are even on the city sidewalk. What we do is, because the street starts to slope a little bit drastically in that area, what we did was we set it back 10 feet, and that allows us to put some gradual steps going up to the front doors. So the setback is actually 10 feet instead of, say, 5 feet. But the maximum that they put in that district is 10 feet. We originally had a 12, and we pulled it back to the 5 feet, so we weren't asking for anything there.
Are we talking Bridge Street or Third Street?
Third,
Okay.
yeah.
It's this area here.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay. Thank you.
As far as number 5 goes, on the landscaping schedule, I did submit, and I believe you fellow have it, I did submit a complete landscape. Everything is labeled on the plan, every tree, every shrub, and each sheet of this represents the A trees, the B trees. So there's a sheet for everything all the way through the back, including all the arborvitaes and the hatch areas that, I worked with the girls in planning and development to develop this, on what trees they would like to see, the city would like to see. Number 6 was the concrete bollards. There was no detail on it. That is on the plan now. It's on, I think it's on sheet 2 of the large sheet, the concrete bollards. It's up in the upper left-hand corner. And then there was a question about the bollards being located a little further back towards the parking, and we did move those back on the plan. Number 8, Aaron and I were working on this. The right elevation has 0 window treatments proposed, while the views from this side would be toward an adjacent property. The board may wish to consider require the applicant to explore incorporating windows into the design of this side of the structure. I just felt it's a very shallow, it's only about we're only 4 feet from the lot line, and it's right up against the other home, so I just thought for security and for privacy that we wouldn't do any windows on that side. Number 9 is the building elevation submitted for the 4-unit residential project on 3rd Street includes utility meters close to the street within view of the public. I only drew it that way to show the utility meters. I've actually boxed that in, and there will be doors that cover the utility meters. Other than that, I wouldn't have put that roof section or anything in there. So there is doors, but I didn't do that so you could actually see those meters. The property features a west to east grade change, which would create a varying height of exposed foundation. The board may wish to consider the calls for any foundation wall to be more uniform, restricting such exposure to no higher than 2 feet. 2 feet's a little bit tight for us. We're looking at more like 30 to 36 inches that we need to have there because of the slope of the street. But we're, we would be in agreement to dress it up by maybe dropping down a row of siding or 2 rows of siding across that side so it doesn't look so exposed. Yep. The board may wish to require more detail relative to the building materials and architectural details of the 2 buildings proposed. Frieze boards, window trim. I did draw everything in, but I didn't list sizes, and they would like sizes. I'm willing to do that. Some of you know that I own the building at 480 Bridge Street, which is probably one of the nicest buildings on the street. It's a brick building. It's where the Lowell precinct used to be. So that's the type of construction I like to do. I want Bridge Street to look good. If I can keep, building on Bridge Street and finding other properties, I'd love to do it. Number 12, the curbing along the eastern edge of the parking lot area should be expanded to the entire surrounding. That's the one I have a problem with because that's a little bit in contradiction to what Lisa wanted. Because of the existing hot top that's on that parking area right now, what we wanted to do is she had us establish landscape areas all the way around so that some of the water runoff would go into these landscape areas and saturate into the ground. Instead of it all being pushed out towards 3rd Street. So we have that all broken down, and we sort of developed it that it would go into different landscape areas. And then the last comment, a lot of comments from a lot of people. The last comment was from, I have not met this man, Eric Eby. And the 2 separate parking facilities, there are 2 separate parking facilities on this site. Each parking facility should provide a handicap space. I wasn't under the assumption that it had to do that. I thought I only needed 1 handicap space. We actually have 19 spaces, and I was under the assumption it was 1 in 20. I always try to put extra spaces in on any projects we do if we can. I don't want to just go with the requirements of the city. If I can get a couple more in there and make everybody's life a little easier, especially in the winter when it snows, that would work out. The van accessible parking must either be 11 feet wide with a 5-foot access or 8 feet wide with an 8-foot. We changed that. That's been changed. The access aisle must clearly be marked as such, and we will. The driveway aisle for the 2 spaces is only 21 feet. It should be 23 feet. Well, we're working with a little bit of a tight area there. It's maybe we could decrease the the depth of the parking's a foot or so, it cheat a little bit here and there, but that is tight, and that's why we originally had them going in at an angle, but they didn't like the fact to back up on the, onto Third Street. 17 spaces along the lot. He suggested that the specific parking spaces be assigned to each unit. I don't have a problem with that. As the length of the lot, it will make it difficult upon entering to see if there's an available space at the rear of the lot. A vehicle not finding a space at the rear of the lot would be forced to back all the way out of the Third Street. Space number 11 on the rear of the lot is very difficult to exit. That's been changed. That was, Lisa DeMayo mentioned that, and he mentioned that. That's been adjusted on the print. The drive aisle should be extended beyond the space to give a vehicle more room to turn, and that's been completed. And I think that's all the comments from the different city. In your package, I do have a letter, the original letter from last July when I met with the CNAG, the Centerville Neighborhood Group, and they were in favor of the project at the time too, and they, as of tonight, there are some members here, and they're still online with, in line with this project to go forward. So if anybody has any questions, I'll do my best.
Okay. Does anybody else working with you with the applicant want to be heard at this point before we turn it over to everybody else? Or anybody else with you? Or,
No, just Mr. Flaherty's here in case you people have any questions.
all right.
You don't have anything you want to get up and... Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yep, one second, okay. Okay, does anybody here want to be heard on this project? Just come to the microphone, state your name and address for record, please. Yes.
Good evening, my name is Jane Pappas, I live at 80 Willard Street. I'm speaking for myself and also for Anne Marie Page, who is at our CNAG meeting tonight. This will be a great product that Mr. Marlowe will do for the neighborhood and for another new building on Bridge Street. The enthusiasm was very high at the June meeting last year for the CNAG when Mr. Marlowe presented his proposal. I am sure that a lot of people would be here except third Monday of CNAG's meeting schedule. And the meeting tonight for our city is with our city manager, Mr. Lynch. I chose to come here tonight as I think improvements of the Bridge Street corridor are so important to our neighborhood. I thank you in advance for approving Mr. Marlowe's plan for Bridge and 3rd Street. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to be heard? Yes, ma'am. Just come to the microphone, state your name and address for record, please.
My name is Ms. Feng Chong. I'm owning the property right on the 15th 4th Street. So looks like I just got the plan today, and seems like I'm very behind on the whole project here. I just got a certified letter last week saying that there's a hearing today. That's why I come up here and try to understand a little bit more about the project. So far, I'm happy for the projects, and this lady was saying that this project will be help out the neighborhood, and I agree on that. Because the whole project that I understand so far, the only residential area that we own is right on behind the parking lot. No, actually, the drawing showing that it's an open space right behind my rear properties. I just want to understand a few points that, during the construction, pre, pro, during, and post, what kind of items or will be affecting, to our tenants? Yes. Can I see 1 second? So, on the picture on the top right, the 15th 4th Street, there's a 3-family housing right there. The whole project seems like that's the only residential property that will be directly, you know, to directly whatever, impact or benefit from this project. So I have a few questions, which is maybe not, because I didn't know all this until this minute about this project, 2 weeks ago. And it's showing the open space. Can I ask, what is that open space mean and for?
Can I answer that? Sure. If you come to the mic and answer, please. Thank you.
The open space is a grass area. The city wants an area where people can go outside and enjoy, and there's going to be trees there, there's going to be shrubs, there's some shrubs along the back end of your property, and the building is actually more towards 3rd Street, because your house is right up against the line. So that's just, it's going to be a grassed area.
And what is the height of the new building directly to my properties?
The height of the building on 3rd Street is, it's a 2-story building, so you're approximately about 27 feet in high, to the top of the roof, 27 feet to the top of the roof.
My concern, because right now is an open parking lots.
Yes.
And with the height, will that be an optical view from the tenant that, would live there? That is my first concern. And I know that right on the line, there's an edge. It looks like there's a space there that I don't know how far your property will go. So in case of the snow comes in, and what kind of snow, pile, and where the snow bank gonna be dumped, and also.
Right here. The snow is being dropped in the snow areas, which are here and here,
Okay.
those 2 spaces.
Can I ask?
That's a plant, that lane there is a 3-foot planting area along the property line.
Oh, so there's 3 feet?
There's 3 feet. and
Open
the rest of it's
space?
grass. Yes, open, all the way, there's actually about 30 feet of open space here. The building stops here, and this is all grass and shrubbery in here.
So the 3 feet will be open with no activities?
Yes.
Can I ask where the sewer line comes and go?
The what?
The sewer line.
Down here.
So
Right.
everything direct toward
Yes.
3rd Street?
Yes.
Okay. And trash.
We've decided, along with the planning and development, we've decided to do the private totes instead of doing a dumpster out the back that has to be enclosed. So both buildings will have the private totes that'll be picked up once a week.
So this is like a four units?
Yes.
Like a condominium unit with a deck on each unit?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no commercial space here?
No.
Okay.
That was a question that came up at the last meeting, and I think we discussed that about these buildings being used for any type of a business, and we've agreed that we would have a covenant on the deed that doesn't allow that.
I heard that you have a lot of comment come from. Can I ask where that comment come from? When you're reading number 1 to number 9?
I'll address that. Okay. Whenever they come in to submit a set of plans, copies have to be given to 8 of our departments.
Sorry, 8?
Eight city departments get a copy of all these plans, not just the planning board. We get one from the Division of Plan and Development, who are people here who work with us on staff. Goes to the city engineer, who we talked about. Goes to the, excuse me, traffic engineer. Goes to the police department. Goes to the fire department. Goes to the wastewater facility. Every one of them gets a set of plans that have to be delivered to them prior to our meeting. They all look over the plans and they make comments. Those comments are meant in form and submitted to us for the planning board, so we can see what some of their concerns or comments are, or how to make things a little better, and they give a copy to the applicant. So when he started his presentation tonight, I asked him if he could please address those comments, Because if not, I know myself or the other board members are gonna ask those questions as we go along. So by our city rules and regulations, they have to just submit them to the 8 city departments before they come before us, for us to look over the plans. So it helps us digest everything on the plan and any concerns or comments that they may have.
So may I say this is the only public hearing for the neighborhood?
Correct. What happens is, they basically come in, they want to put on for a certain date, and then it's advertised in the paper, I believe twice, Aaron, was it advertised? And then notices go out, yeah. So it has to be advertised in the paper twice as well for public hearing. And what they do, we have copies of the dates and times that it was published in our local paper. And then we also have to publicize it here at City Hall as well, to make sure that we conform to the new state regulations for open meeting laws. And then it's marked up for public hearing, correct?
All right, I just feel that, you know, because we are just, you know, directly to this project, and this is the only certified mail that we got, and this is, you know, get done right in front of me right now. And I didn't prepare for this meeting about what to ask and what to know. As I mentioned earlier, this is the property that we own is the only residential area that, you know, directly with this new project and construction that's coming up, and it's kind of overwhelming for me at this minute to what to ask and what to expect.
Well, there's also a lot of residential areas on 3rd Street heading up the street and across from 3rd Street as well. Right?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
There's a lot of residential areas on 3rd Street that are to the right of his project and heading up the street and across the street as well. So there's a lot of residential
Yes.
as well, I mean, in that whole area, right?
Yes.
And a lot of them are multifamily homes, 2, 3, 4-story,
Right.
family homes, right? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
I actually think you're doing pretty good with your questions, so if you hadn't prepared, you're doing a good job. But I also wanted to mention that if this does get approval this evening, it will go to the Board of Appeals, Zoning Board of Appeals, and there'll be another public hearing at the Zoning Board of Appeals. So they need to get approval from the Planning Board as well as the Zoning Board of Appeals, which will be yet another public hearing, another opportunity for neighborhood feedback.
Thank you for that info. I'm not familiar with, I mean, give me the drawing, I think I can read a little bit, I'm not a technical person, so I don't know what to expect, what to see, and just a few questions for myself to understand so I can bring back and digest with my husband, that's all.
No problem.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak in regards to this project?
My name's Dennis Deegan, 51 Homestead Road off of Bunker Hill. I'd like to see this happen. It would block the sea of hot top that you see from Bridge Street passing by now by putting all the parking behind the building, and it'll get rid of a lot of the hot top and add a lot of trees and grass to the area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in regards to this project? Anybody else want to speak? Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, at this point in time, before I turn over to the board, does Plan Development have any further comments? I know I had a question for Aaron earlier today that we haven't received anything back from the fire department as of yet, right, Aaron? I know you sent stuff out and you were looking to see if we had a comment back.
We actually did review our files earlier today, and we did get confirmation from the fire department that they didn't have any issues with the site plan for either of the two buildings on, 14 to 16 3rd Street or 401 Bridge. They did make note that through the building and fire code that they will need automatic sprinkler systems.
And also, Aaron, I know on the advertisement, when I read it to begin with, it talked about the site plan, but I know if I spoke with you as well, then we changed it. So tonight is for the site plan as well as a special permit, right?
That's correct. It's site plan review and special permit, and it's a use special permit due to the number of residential units proposed with the project. And the planning board is the granting authority.
So they're looking for, I know that, they have to go for the ZBA, but for us, they need the site plan and the special permit, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the review before the ZBA is only for variances.
Variances, right, okay. Anything else Division of Plan Development want to weigh in on, or any other comments at this time?
we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. At this point in time, I'll turn it over. Any of the board members have any questions or comments? Mr. Chairman, can I start with you? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first kind of general question, Aaron, I think is, are we viewing this as two separate lots? This is two separate lots, correct?
They are two separate lots. It's the, and Mr. Marlowe can correct me if I'm wrong, the central parking lot, which has spaces 3 through 19, and then the 4-unit residential building are a single lot, or proposes a single lot, and then 401 Bridge, which has the mixed-use building on the corner with 2 parking spaces, is a separate lot. But it's being presented as a whole.
It's being presented as a whole, but the bank for financing liked the fact that they wanted both buildings on separate lots as they were originally when we purchased them, except that we'll have an easement in there for the parking for the 401 Bridge Street on the 3rd Street property.
Okay.
Our original plan, what we thought when we dealt with the Realtor, was that we were gonna build on 401 Bridge Street and that we would be leasing parking from the city in that lot and have them numbered. And the city didn't wanna do that. They would rather sell the lot and then develop the whole parcel.
So if at some point in time, could they be sold separately in the future?
Theoretically, they could be.
So
Yes.
if that were to happen, I mean, the lot on Bridge Street depends upon the parking on the other lot, so that.
No, it would be, the parking would be part of the deed.
Yeah, you could structure it such that the parking is accessible by the units and the commercial space at 401 Bridge Street. And that would be a critical aspect of this project from the city's perspective. The purpose for making these parcels available through the RFP process was to expedite or accommodate the redevelopment of the property at 401 Bridge Street that burned down between 2 and 3 years ago.
Okay. And I suspect that that's where Eric Eby's traffic engineer's comments came about the handicap space as well. I would assume that since they're separate lots, each lot needs their own handicap space. Is that true?
So, yeah, there's in the Americans in Disability Act, with Disability Act guidelines for parking spaces, there's a little ambiguity between what is a parking lot and what is multiple parking lots. So the way he was reading it was that because there's 2 separate accesses to these spaces and there's no circulation, there's no point where you can circulate from one parking lot to the other. So from his point of view, it was 2 separate parking lots. That's why he felt that there was two handicap parking spaces were required.
So I think it may be necessary to have an additional handicap parking spot in there. I understand your rationale, of the 1 per 20, but, in order to comply with this.
No, I thought that was explained just now. Maybe I took it the wrong way. Because it's basically all one lot with 2.
Yeah, but he's saying it's not all one lot, because in order to be considered all one lot, there would have to be circulation from one lot to the other, and the lots are really separate. So what Eric is saying, that by the definition provided by the Americans with Disabilities Act, these are 2 separate lots, and each one would have to have their own handicap spot.
If I could just jump in a little bit here. I'm conveying Eric Eby's perspective on this, and again, it's a pretty ambiguous definition. The ultimate, or the person who kind of makes the determination how the ADA requirements are applied is the building commissioner.
Okay.
If the board wishes, we could have the building commissioner weigh in on this.
Yeah,
I know we've had discussions internally, and because it's ambiguous, it's a little difficult to determine exactly what is intended under the ADA requirements.
Okay, that makes sense, I think, get an opinion from the building commissioner, but if indeed we need to have that handicap lot,
That's fine.
then I think you have the ability to add it.
I do. Like I said, I try to put extra space in.
I appreciate
and,
that.
yeah.
Then that makes sense. So I sure would feel a lot better, but I agree with what everybody said. I think it's going to be a great thing for the neighborhood, and we want to, I like, in general, I think the plan is good, but I sure would feel a lot better about it if we met our land area per dwelling unit and our side yard regulations. Did you consider that at all?
We did. We've been working on this a long time. We had, at one point, we had the building in sideways, which never looks good in a residential area. We've moved things around a lot. This is probably number 6. And we keep tweaking it to accommodate everything. The bottom line is when you're dealing with such a small lot at the corner of Bridge and Third, that's what creates the problems. It's only 3,900 square feet.
Yeah.
And the building that used to be there was a 4-story building that covered the 3,900 square feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we try to work with the city and accommodate and get the parking. We even, at one point, had all the usable open space behind Third Street, so we moved some of it over to the 401 Bridge Street. So at least it gives them a bike rack back there. No, the bike rack, the bike rack is there.
Yeah.
And it gives them a seating area.
Yeah.
So.
I did a quick calculation here, and if you add up the land area on the both lots and reduced the 3-story building from a 4-unit to a 2-unit, you just make the land area per dwelling unit requirements. Is that ever something that, rather than making it 4 2-bedrooms or whatever it is, make it 2
We went through all that, and it just, basically, what the city wanted for the land, and it just wasn't an economical way to go. It just didn't work at all. We wouldn't have to, if we had gone with just a 2-family, we wouldn't even have had to gone in front of the city council for the zoning change, if we had gone with just a duplex.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. And I suspect, Aaron, maybe you know this. I suspect that the density in the neighborhood is probably exceeds our land area per dwelling unit, mark anyway. Is that true?
Well, we didn't do a study for a lot by lot study for the Third Street, but I do know for a fact that the residential units or buildings, if you're facing the property on your right, it's heading east up Third Street, are 4-unit complexes on smaller lots, so they're actually more dense than what's proposed for the 4-unit alone by itself, and that goes all the way up the street into the intersection of Weed, where Third and Weed is. So on that side, it's less dense than what's currently there. On the opposite side of the street, it's primarily single-family homes on Third Street, although they're on again, smaller lots, so
I see. Yeah.
it's somewhere in the
Okay,
middle.
well, we'll leave that to the zoning board, I guess, since it's definitely going to improve the site over what we have now, and it's consistent, it seems, with what's in the neighborhood. Aaron, I wanted to ask you about the side yard. Do we talk to the person who lives in that house right next to, that's going to be 4 feet away from this condo complex? Did you talk to this person?
No, I haven't. We sent out letters, we followed through with everything we had to do. We followed through on the letters. And, the only thing that happens over there is, we've gone over there a number of times and I had pictures of it. They're working on cars in the parking lot. They're dumping oil on the ground. There's car parts in the upper rear corner just piled up. I'm dying to get in there and just clean it up.
You mean on your property?
On
this property?
the city property.
Aaron, 4 feet seems really tight. Is that something that we think is acceptable?
But it's consistent with the buildings on that side of the street, again, heading up towards Weed, where Third and Weed is, all those buildings are basically right up to the property line on the edge. So looking at the character of the neighborhood in the context that we would feel is an appropriate setback, as long as it's consistent with the character and is required to accommodate other amenities such as parking in this
Yeah, I
case.
get it.
Parking was a challenge to meet the setbacks.
Yeah.
You could potentially move the building over, but providing parking in the back of the property was more of a challenge because you used a lot more of the lot area for drive lanes and parking, and it was more impervious area.
Okay.
So to accommodate parking, it was necessary.
Okay, good enough. A couple more questions. The curbing interior to the lot, you have concrete curbing?
Concrete curbing.
Would you consider using granite in there?
I usually what we do is we pour it, we pour that all as one one whole unit, so I didn't expect to have to use granite like anything. We were gonna pour regular concrete with steel rods in it. No, we weren't gonna use bituminous, asphalt paving or anything like that, but we were gonna pour that.
Yeah, seems like in my opinion anyway, I feel like the concrete, the granite looks a little nicer. And it also, I think it lasts forever, right? You're never gonna damage that granite concrete, the granite curb, whereas the concrete, I feel like even concrete is gonna get broken and crumble over time. Is that something you would consider?
I'd rather not.
I'll take that as a yes then. All right, let me continue the questioning. On the other side of the parking lot, what are you going to do there? What does that divider between the parking lots look like over there?
It's going to be what they call a hatch or a landscape area. That was something that Lisa wanted, again, for the water to drain in and get. Right now, the whole lot is completely covered with asphalt.
Right.
Right now, the water, there's no drainage, retention at all. The water goes right down Bridge Street and into the sewers or down Bridge Street. So what we did was, under the state, I have to decrease the amount of water that comes into the street. So it's easy to do because we're putting in open space. But she wanted to try to take care of some of the other areas. So that's why we have a drain at each parking lot, and then landscape areas on the edge of the street, and then landscape areas along the edges of the property, so that you'll pick up some water drainage that is in there now.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But right between the two lots, is that a landscaped area? Is that grass?
No, that's just
Asphalt?
They'll just asphalt right up to each other. Yep.
What about some type of? And all the way up, it says landscaped up here. So further up on the behind spaces 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, it says landscaped in that area.
Yes, that's the 3-foot landscape area.
Okay. Would you consider putting some, they have those little barriers so that the cars can't roll up onto the landscaped area?
Well, there was
They'll still allow for water to drain, but it would keep cars from pulling up.
We could in that area, but due to the tightness of all this, you have to really start to think about. And I plow. We do all our own plowing, and when you start putting a lot of this, it just becomes a nightmare to keep a lot clear. So they did want some barriers in between the handicapped and 3 and 4, along with 1 and 2 and 3 and 5. They wanted barriers there, but it's just so difficult to plow this. If we come in from the Bridge Street piece, we can push it towards the 3rd Street piece and start to bring everything up towards the back. It sort of becomes a nightmare for plowing.
I hear you. It's just that I feel like the landscaped area kind of loses it's kind of pointless to have a landscaped area there if you're just going to let cars pull right up on it.
Yeah.
I'm seeing situations like that all over the city where you get asphalt leading right up to a grassy area.
Well, I'm open to that. The ones that cause the problem for me are between 1 and 2 and 3 and 5.
Yeah, so I think it's less important when you have butted parking
Right,
spaces.
but if you wanted them up the back, I wouldn't have a problem with that. One of the things we've done on a property we have on Mammoth Road is we put steel I-beams right at the landscape edge. We put small steel I-beams in, and then bolted a nice big piece of wood on, so that it's really in the front of the car. And if they hit it, they know it because it's concreted into the ground with steel, and that's worked out really well for us. And it doesn't affect the plowing. Rather than having these things on the ground that the plow hits, we put in 2 pieces with a large piece of wood in the front. Maybe like a 6x8 pressure treated timber, and we maintain them, and it looks good and it works good. If you hit it, you hit it.
Yeah.
And that would allow the water to still drain underneath.
You're talking about, again, up on the upper spaces.
Sure.
Yeah, as long as you can accomplish the goal of keeping people off of the landscaped area,
Yep.
I'll let you work with the planning department on a solution.
Yep.
But my main thing would be to have something there to keep the cars from getting onto the landscaped area. So the private totes, how does that work? It's just like the city totes, only have some private company
Yes,
come out and pick
yeah,
them up?
I never knew about it, the planning and development and working with Lisa in the engineering department. I never knew about that till they told me about it, and I'd rather do that than do have dumpsters that I have to close in
Yeah,
and
I
then move a
agree.
car, yeah.
And the dumpsters tend to create a mess too. Does that work pretty well, Aaron, at other places in the city?
Yeah, our sense is that particularly in these tight areas where you have a small parking lot or not even really a parking lot, to provide a dumpster location here would be very difficult. Practically speaking, you would also lose parking spaces. The totes are much more flexible. You can assign them to the units, and you may need to have a waste hauler come more often or more frequently, but they can wheel them right out to the street, and it can be accommodated just like you would the city program. In fact, I think, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that at least the 4 units on 3rd Street would be eligible for the city waste program.
What about recycling? Do they have the private recycling too? My pen's falling apart.
That can be provided as a part of it. It's not a requirement right now in the city ordinance. It may be in the future, so it may be worth considering providing that in this project. But right now, recycling through a private hauler is not required.
I see. Does that cost you something to do? I mean, would that be?
Yeah, we'd maintain that, we'd have to, it's no different than having a dumpster picked up,
But I mean, the private, if we were to extend it to the private, to include recycling, is that something?
if they offer, but I don't think they offer it at this time.
A private hauler could provide recycling, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, it may not necessarily be available through the city, but you can, as part of a contract with a hauler, I believe you can have recycling privately.
Yeah, I'd be open to that.
Be open to that. Okay. And you said there's a covenant on the deal restricting commercial use in any of the units?
Correct. Yeah, you wouldn't want somebody to put a sewing machine in there and start doing alterations and have some blinking signs.
Okay, and, I think it looks good. As I said, the dwelling unit restrictions, the land area per dwelling unit in the side yard make me a little uncomfortable, but we'll leave that to the zoning board since there's clearly some benefit to, and reasoning behind why you chose that path. If we could get those barriers protecting, and I'd really like to see the granite curb along the easterly side, I think that'd be terrific. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Boyle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Marlowe, it's good to see this project here. I think this is, in its concept, a fundamentally sound project for this location. The reconstruction of 401 Bridge Street in a manner that's, with a design that's sensitive towards its history, addressing both the Bridge Street side as well as the 3rd Street side the way you do. You've got good window design. You very much addresses both sides. And then a shared parking area, and then multifamily residential pulled up somewhat towards the street for family. It seems to be, in terms of use, in terms of building types, in terms of how the lot is laid out, in terms of density, it seems to be the type of thing that is at the right scale with roughly the right style and design to fit into this neighborhood. If you go out to the suburban communities around here where we're talking about 1 and 2 acre lots, half of it is wooded. It doesn't really matter so much which way the building faces, which sides, how the driveway comes in. But in a place like, in a neighborhood like this, as Mr. Genowitz says in his item number 4 here, items such as building typology, size, feel, and pedestrian environment will be critical for the board. And they are critical. You do have to use a little bit more sensitive and thoughtful a touch when you're putting something into a location like this. And I think that the design we've got so far goes a long way towards addressing that. I think the project we've got here is fundamentally sound. That said, I feel like there are a couple of design options we should talk about here to really get the most out of this. I think we can get the most out of this. I think this can be a project that is not just good enough to fit in with the neighborhood, but it's something that can really be a model, something that can really stand out and say, this is an excellent project, and as other people come in to build in the future, the DPD can point to and say, look at what a good job they did there. I mentioned building typology, size, and feel. They specifically call out the front setback of the four-unit building. And I think that is something that the board, I think this is an issue that the board needs to really think about, really needs to talk about, to figure out what we want to do here. We've got this the option that we have presented to us. The building is set back 10 feet. It's actually 10 feet to those front doors.
Correct.
It's 12 feet to the actual facade of the building.
Correct.
There's these little bump outs.
Yep.
Creates this, what is it, like 12 by 13 foot squares, and then a 12 by 26 foot rectangle in the front, big enough to put trees. Maybe, those aren't the large shade trees, but they're the sort of the medium-sized.
Yes, these are trees that we worked with, directly with planning and development to make those into nice landscape areas in the front. So if somebody's sitting out there, you know, they're smaller trees that don't become invasive.
The basic design principle, as well as the requirement in the zoning, is for consistency with the block. As applied to this particular location, I think what we need to think about is consistency with the next couple of buildings, next few buildings up 3rd Street on that side of the street.
Yep.
I was up there looking at it. You say that the setback along the street, to be consistent, is 5 feet. That, once again, is 5 feet to the facade of the building. It what you actually see when you look up there is that it's roughly 2 feet from the back of the sidewalk to the beginning of the steps, and then 3 more feet to the facade of the building. And what you're proposing here is really...
It's actually, Mr. Flaherty just pointed out, we have 8 feet to the front doorway, and then 10 feet to the main facade.
Okay.
Yep, so it's 2 feet less than what we were talking about.
Okay, 8 feet and then 10 feet, all right.
And that's only to accommodate the slope as you go up the road to be able to get stairs, you know, to get in the front door.
Right, I understand. And pulling it forward more, pulling the whole building forward so that its dimensions and its setbacks are consistent with those neighboring buildings, that would pose a problem for you in terms of
the
grade?
code requires at least, and those houses didn't require it back then, but the codes require a 42-inch landing. So that's almost 4 feet right there.
Okay,
So if you take 4 feet off the 8 feet, then I have, I have 4 feet to work with to be able to get the steps to get up into the unit.
okay. A 4-foot landing there,
It's actually 42 inches.
42 inches. Okay, so a 3.5-foot landing.
A lot of those houses originally had, you know, you can see them even in the acre, you know, there's 3 steps and they walk right in the front
Yep,
door.
yep.
But if you have a storm door, you're walking back down the stairs to get in the door, so that's why they require a 42-inch landing.
And then we have here in item number 10, the board may wish to consider a condition that calls for any foundation wall exposure to be more uniform, restricting such exposure to no higher than 2 feet.
Correct.
You said that that is potentially that's potentially a headache for you to try to meet that,
Well, it is. The standard under the code, today's code, your foundation is minimum, cannot be out of the ground, can be not shallower than 8 inches. And you have to have slope from there. So you're talking 8 inches to 24 isn't that much. I'm looking at about 30 to 36 inches, but I'm willing to work with planning and development, and if I have to, and drop the siding or do some other type of decorative say, a table along the bottom to decrease that amount of foundation showing.
Good.
We could also rub the foundation so it didn't look like a typical poured foundation. You know, we can finish it so it looks a lot nicer.
So we've got these two issues here. We've got the setback and wanting to make the setback consistent with the buildings on on that same side of the street. See, that's really important as a design feature, because what you've got this street, okay, and you've got these buildings, and there's this established rhythm to them. And then it opens up to the pavement.
Yep.
Okay, you've got this line and then you lose it. It's similar to if you go up to 4th Street where there's the gas station. It's the similar feel to that. You've got the buildings, you've got the rhythm, there's this consistency to the street, and then just when you get to Bridge Street, you lose it, and it opens up to this wide space of pavement. And the reason that there's this requirement for the consistency of the setback, I'm sure Mr. Lockhart could explain this even better than I'm attempting to, is to hold that line, okay, so that it doesn't just peter out, but that it carries through, all the way from back in the neighborhood, so you've got that same feel of being in that intimate, neighborly neighborhood. There's a feel when you walk down that street. And
No,
you
and
don't wanna
I
lose
can
that.
totally understand that, except that you also have to build to today's codes.
That's right, you do.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I've hit upon a solution for both of them. One that will allow there to not be that visual intrusion of having the high foundation visible, as well as setting the building line, the front line of the building, in such a way that you maintain that established line of the street. It's a solution which also has other benefits, visual aesthetic benefits for the neighborhood, social benefits, and that's front porches. If you put a front porch, one all the way across the front, or perhaps 2 front porches around each of these doors, the first facade that you hit that gives us the line of the building is not the facade of the building, it's the front of the porch. You were mentioning the idea of continuing the siding down over. That same basic idea is relatively easy to do with front porches. You could have, all the way on the right, the distance from the ground to the front porch being relatively small, 18 inches, and going all the way to the left on the building, that could be 4 feet of front porch when you get to the deck of the porch. But the level on the porches remains the same. You don't have that visual intrusion of the foundation, and you're holding something much closer to that street line.
Can I address that? What I tried to create here, and I spent a lot of time, I took a lot of pictures in Cambridge. I always try to create something that's going to look good for the city. Okay, on 401 Bridge Street, for instance, we have a clock tower. We also, working with planning development, they asked me if I would follow the contour of the street. Probably added about 15% on the construction cost because the building's not square anymore, but I'm willing to do that. On the front of 3rd Street, what I tried to achieve there was an old-fashioned type entrance where we're going to have the front entrance part of that building will be all white raised panels with a single entrance door with a copper roof on. I didn't have colored renderings done, but that's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to achieve something. Lowell and Cambridge are very similar to these buildings that are close to the street, and that's what I tried to achieve with that bump out. That's sort of like this little vestibule that you would walk into before going into your apartment, okay? So that's what I tried to achieve there. So the door is going to be a very attractive front door with raised panels. And if you add the porch, now you have to put railings up that are, depending on certain codes, some of them are 36, some of them are 42. It starts to take away from that beauty of this elegant entrance that we've created. There's a lot of houses in Belvedere that have these little bump outs that were all raised panels with a single entrance front. And that's what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to achieve this row house look. And I can understand, I would love to pull it close to the street. If I can, I will. But we've shot the grades, and it doesn't seem like we can make it work.
Right, the most obvious answer to make it more consistent would be to pull the building forward, but with your grading issue, yeah, that's understandable, that's not an option.
I mean, I could
That's
put the
why-
landing, and then, like, in Cambridge, a lot of them have the stairs come up on the side. So they have the porch, what you're talking about, but then when we did that, the porch took away from that sort of elegant front entrance.
Well, I'm one member of the board. In my opinion, front porches do not take away, front porches add.
Yeah.
In terms of the beauty of a building, but also in terms of the benefits of having that space. We're talking about the difference between these large rural suburban lots versus this city neighborhood. With a building this close to the street, in a dense neighborhood, it becomes very important that you have a good transition from public space to private space. And a way to think about that is to think that it's not just a harsh change from the public, like the sidewalk where anybody is walking, to the inside of a building on the other side of a door, and it's completely private. That allows the noise and the people passing on the sidewalk and everything. It's right there outside your private space. What makes it a little more civilized, okay? What allows you to deal with, what makes it livable to be in a dense area like this.
But that's why we developed such a large, I mean, we're over what the usable open space is in the backyard, and each unit has its own private deck that's 12 feet long.
Right, but it's not, yes, and I did appreciate, that's a nice detail, that makes this a quality project. But what I'm talking about is not just the provision of that space that the residents can use, but about providing that transition from public to private, instead of just having fully public on the sidewalk to fully private inside your front door. You have a semi-public space and a semi-private space. What you get when you add a front porch, you've got this sort of in-between space, so that as somebody comes home and they walk in their front door, or as a visitor comes, there's this space which somebody can feel like they can approach the unit and yet not be intruding. It provides a buffer, and it's not just a matter of providing the space on the porch for the residents to use, but of providing that semi-public, semi-private, this would actually be semi-public, transitional space. You actually provide a good semi-private space by not having front doors into the unit on the front of the building. You have that little vestibule area where the people enter, and then the entrances to their unit.
Correct.
That little vestibule unit is what we call a semi-private space.
Yeah.
Putting a semi-public space right off of that for the people coming in off the sidewalk to enter furthers that same theme, makes this makes this a little bit more of a humane.
Well, the only thing I can add to that is I grew up in Sunnyvale. David and Dennis grew up in Sunnyvale. I think they'd agree with me because we've had this conversation. I don't think you want to encourage people to be sitting on the front of those porches. Get them in the backyard to use their space that we've given them, which is generous, and the open space. I don't think you want to encourage people to sit on that front.
This is an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
This is a conversation that's been happening within the planning community about that. Do we want to discourage that street life? Do we want to encourage that front porch presence?
They're discouraging it in New York City.
They are discouraging it in parts of New York City.
Yeah.
They are encouraging it in other parts of New York City.
Yeah.
New York City is an interesting city in that it has such a wide range of different housing types and of different housing densities. The areas of New York City which are at roughly the density of this part of Centerville, those are the areas that benefit the most from having this semi-public space in the front, from having these front porches. When you have a front porch, when you have people out there, it's what's called eyes on the street, okay? There are people there. It's not an abandoned space. People walking up and down, people walking on the sidewalk, people on the street feel like there's someone there, and it influences their behavior. Yeah, I brought up the term the social benefits. I believe, and we can see what the rest of the board thinks, I am strongly in favor of front porches. This board knows how strongly in favor I am of street trees. I am arguing that it would be a net gain for the city to add front porches to this project, even at the expense of these street trees that he's providing, for the couple of reasons. What I've been talking about, providing the eyes on the street, providing that semi-public space, but also the maintenance of that street line. The ideal would be to maintain that street line all the way to 401 Bridge. Okay, the line from the front of the houses that are along 3rd Street, if that could continue all the way to your building at 401 Bridge, that would be the ideal in terms of urban design. That's not feasible here. We've got to have...
It's not because of the slopes in the road.
It's the slopes in the road, and you need your parking area.
Yeah.
But maintaining that as far as possible. The longer you can hold that line, the better the street is going to be, and the better this project is going to fit in, and the more this project will be able to contribute to and draw from the positive design features that already exist in that neighborhood. This is not a neighborhood that the design and the layout needs to be fixed and overcome. There are issues in Centerville. But the layout of the houses and how they address the street, that is not an issue that needs to be overcome. That is an asset for the city and an asset for the neighborhood that we should be seeking to maximize. We need, the goal in the design here from the public viewpoint should be to hold that line, hold that street line as far as we can. And I believe that a good way to do that, as well as, and to address number 10 here, and to address this issue with the setback, which is not, as shown on the plan, consistent with the requirement in the table of dimensional, with the dimensional table. I believe that can be addressed best by adding a front porch element to this building. That was the biggest thought I had on this project. I did have one other idea. You've said you've gone through numerous designs of this.
Yes.
And this issue I was just raising about the importance of holding that street line, is extending it as far as we can towards Bridge Street. There is a design option that's worth taking into account, which would allow us to extend that even further and bring your project more in conformance with the zoning and reduce the number of variances you need. And that would be to take the right-hand row of parking that you have here. Right now, on the main parking area, you have 2 rows of parking with a drive lane in between. Take that right-hand row of parking, and instead of having it parallel to the street, swing it around to the back lot line.
We tried it. That was one of the suggestions. It doesn't work.
And why not?
You don't, it's just, you lose spaces because of the drive space, and the turning, you didn't, it decreased the usable open space so drastically that
It does, yes, it's
it
clearly.
brought it below. We'd be going for another zoning, in front of the ZBA for, believe me, I have that drawing.
Yeah, it definitely would bring in certain other zoning issues. However, another thing to consider, and here we're getting into the realm of what do we value more, what do we want more, and what are we not as worried about. Doing this would allow the building to be pulled over the width of a parking space, the width of one of those, the length of one of those compact spaces, 17 feet, further
But
towards
I-
Bridge Street, thereby taking care of your issue of the side yard setback.
We had this all drawn and it just didn't work. We sat down, we've worked on this. We had 4 parking spaces in the rear, we had 6 parking spaces in the rear, and it just, because of the turning around and the driving out, it just took up, it looks right, it looks, when you're looking at it, it looks right, but when you draw it, it just doesn't work.
When you draw, it just doesn't work. You had, okay, you tried to, you said 4 spaces and 6 spaces.
We had 4 and 6 spaces behind the 4-unit building.
What about simply having the entire length from where your parking spaces begin to the side of the lot as one space after another?
Because it took up all the usable open space, and that was the problem.
It took up the usable open space.
Yep.
Which, if this was to be done, would be replaced by usable open space between your building and 24 Third Street. There would now be a side yard.
No, because on usable open space, I don't quote me on this, there's,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I was looking at this. If you pull your building over 17 feet, that gives you 21 feet between your building and the lot line. Usable open space needs to be 20 feet wide, so it would have the width to be counted as usable open space.
no, because there's a space, there's a stipulation there that it has to be so many feet from the lot line and so many feet from the building line. Not from the building line, but from the lot line.
Not from the building line, from the lot line.
I think it's 15
It
feet.
needs to be 15 feet wide, your usable open space needs to be 15 feet wide, and it needs to be 5 feet from the lot line. This would be 16 feet wide, 5 feet from the lot line. So you'd have a 16-foot wide usable open space. It would be, I drew this out, gentlemen of the board, and it would be a reduction of the usable open space on the lot. It would mean giving up some of the usable open space that's currently in this backyard area in exchange, because it would have to be used for a drive lane to get to the spaces. And so it's a value judgment between how important is having that setback versus, and how important is having more usable open space. We would be basically.
All you're gonna lose, you're still gonna need the drive lane for the left side of the parking lot.
Yeah, you would still, you'd still need this drive lane. You'd just be gaining 17 feet by not having those lengths of.
The other thing, by adding more, and
Right,
I,
purpose
I've
area.
gone back and forth with Lisa, by adding more hot top, you're now not decreasing the flow, the amount of water that they want taken off the lot, with stormwater. This is 14 months. We've had multiple plans, we've sat down, we've gone back and forth to set everything in the, in the direction that it should be.
Well,
Maybe Pat,
these are my goal here in thinking of these things. The front porches and the shifting of the parking to the rear. Shifting the parking is twofold. To maintain that line, to maintain that architectural line as far down Third Street as we can, as well as, and related to that, would be minimizing the length of Third Street, which is dedicated to parking. As we have it now, we have, moving from west to east, a drive lane, a parking row, a parking row, a drive lane, a parking row. It all comes out to, it's 18 plus 18 plus 18 plus 22 plus 22, 40, 56, I don't know, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 80-something feet. That's 80 feet of that line that we lose.
Right now, you've got that lost over there because they've got multiple entrances into that parking lot that's there now.
Yes, yes.
And
exactly.
we're actually eliminating some of that by lifting up the far end when towards the top of the hill. We're lifting the curb and eliminating that. We're not changing, we're not adding any entrances at all. These entrances are already existing. There's 3 entrances on those properties right now. We're eliminating one and keeping the 2 exactly in the location they're at.
Yep, yeah, you're right. The issue I'm bringing up here, though, is not curb cuts. The issue I'm bringing up here is the width of the street, which is turned over to parking, which is used for parking. Right now, it's parking all the way from the back of 401 Bridge all the way to the lot line of 24 3rd Street. You're taking away a lot of that parking with this four-unit building. That's a positive.
I'm not taking any parking away. If anything, I'm adding parking.
Well, the whole thing is paved now.
Correct.
And it's, the whole thing is one big
Parking
sea of
lot.
pavement, one big parking lot, all the way from 401 Bridge to 24 3rd Street. And by putting a four-unit building there, on part of that parking lot, you're basically taking that much length of the street away from the parking and giving it back to people and buildings. And that's a very positive thing for this neighborhood. And I understand why the neighborhood was so positive about it, because you're severely diminishing the sea of parking. You're gonna have landscaping, you're gonna have an attractive building, you know, these are all good things. But to really maximize that benefit, I think it's very important to hold that building line as far down 3rd Street as possible. If it's not possible to do, then it's not possible to do. I would very much have liked to have seen some of the parking put in the back instead of lined up, going down all the way to the street. That's a nice urban design element when you can hide parking behind buildings, hide the cars and the pavement.
Yeah, the building, the lot is, it's just not conducive to it. We did it. We had it all drawn. It just didn't work. We had to draw it to show that it didn't work.
It's a shame if that's not available. It's a shame if that's not an option. I do feel that the use of front porches to maintain that street line is an option that this board should very strongly consider. The bollards.
Yes.
Yes, moving on from that issue, we can, and the board can talk more about that. Moving on to a few more detailed issues. Speaking of detailed, I liked the windows facing from 401 Bridge to the rear. It's important to have eyes from 401 Bridge back onto the parking lot. It's important that parking lot be visible.
I didn't catch that.
The buildings on the rear of your new 401 Bridge building that face towards the parking lot?
Yes.
Yes, that's a nice design feature. It could have been a blank wall. You didn't make it a blank wall.
Oh, yeah,
You
no,
made
that's correct.
Windows, and that's a positive. You put the 2 windows on the west side of the 4-unit building.
Correct.
That's a positive. You need to have eyes on your parking.
Yeah, and we've already discussed with planning and development to make some other design changes on the end of the building, just to make it look a little more attractive. Look, I don't know how many of you know me. I've been around for a long time. I'm 58 years old. I was brought up, went to St. Michael's School, graduated from Lowell High School. Just a quick little note. When I built 480 Bridge Street, the brick building, and I used I went to see he's still here, and Charlie there, he was the architect for the park service, and I sat with him to develop the corbels and the right brick, and we ordered the original water-struck brick to do that building. And a pretty well-known builder from Draker came up to me, he goes, "What did you spend so much money there for?" I says, "Because my name is on the building." and it's always done me good. And I can tell this board right now, I'm not gonna put anything up that my name is on that you're gonna be disappointed in. Everything will be landscaped properly, everything will be maintained all the time, and it's gonna be an attractive building. I mean, I could just say, look, I'm not even gonna put a clock tower on. The clock tower is costing me money. The clock alone is costing me money. I want that to be a pretty building. When I'm coming over the Cox Bridge, I wanna look and see that clock. I want it to be an attractive space.
Mr. Marlowe, I think it's pretty clear that ethic you're talking about, I think it's pretty clear you've gone through some effort to incorporate it into
Yeah.
this. You're a builder.
Yeah.
What you build is going to be what you leave behind.
Yeah.
And the projects you've done and the project that you're bringing before the board tonight, I think it shows pretty clearly that you're thinking in those terms, that you want to leave behind something quality for the city. And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like I said to open this up, I think this is a fundamentally sound project, and I believe we will eventually be able to approve a quality project here. I think there's a little bit more that can be done on it. Getting back to the bollards, what are the bollards for?
They were suggested through planning and development mainly so that when the plows come in, to plow that out, that it doesn't wreck all the nice landscape area.
Yep.
Bollards are used a lot in Boston. Pat Flaherty uses them a lot down in Cambridge. And it's just to keep the plow, if it hits it, it sort of pushes the plow away. That's why they're all rounded. On the detail, we're gonna farm them ourselves and pour them right in place.
Excellent. Okay, getting to this issues of the windows on the side, the windows on the east side, there are lack of windows on the east side. Because of the very small setback to the adjacent building, I tend to agree with Mr. Marlowe. It would be better to not have them. If we were able to shift some of that parking behind and move the building over, I would, and so that there was a 21-foot side yard there, and it would be a visible side of the building, I would very much want to see windows there. Where it's staying, where it's located now, I do not think that's a necessary item. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. I would be very interested to hear Mr. Larkhart's take on what I've been talking about.
Rich, anything you want to add?
All right, on the spot. What do you mean with the porches?
About, particularly the porches.
Well, I'd have to look at the rest of the street to understand how they'd fit in, and I can't do that here. I don't think it's a critical factor. I think actually what he's presented from an overall standpoint is good redevelopment of this property. And I appreciate your sensitivity to the historic significance of 401 Bridge Street by going to the expense and detail of putting in a clock tower. I think it adds significantly to the site. Porches, I don't see them as a critical factor. Consistency along the street and the setback, yeah, the best that you can do there. You have a difficult area to kind of work with. Mr. Boyle does bring up I think a good point in terms of parking from an overall standpoint. It's always nice to have parking behind the building so you can't really see.
I would have loved, if I had had another.
I don't, again, see that as a critical factor. Parking over there has been an issue for many, many years along the business district, and, you know, I think that works okay, and with the right landscaping, you can make that work. You know, by working with DPD, I think you can accomplish that. I do just have a couple of questions. One, on your parking layout, you're looking for relief on the size of the spaces?
Just the first, I think it's the first four, just on the depth.
All right, I'm looking at your ZBA application. I'm not sure we have to address this tonight, but it says here, to decrease parking width from 9 to 8.5, and decrease parking length on some spaces from
That's correct.
18 to 17, So you're just talking 4 spaces?
Yeah, well, no, 8.5, we wanted to try to get in more spaces if we could. That,
Could you point out where they are?
yep. If we were to eliminate space number 9, I'm sorry, space number 11, we could make the spaces 9 feet wide. And a lot of, I went to a lot of the large supermarkets and measured some of them, and those are all 8.5 feet. So I thought with the cars aren't as large as they used to be, cars are just a lot smaller, that 8.5, and is accepted in a lot of areas. So it just allowed me to increase and give more parking than what was required. And then on the decrease, it was only on these first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, I just wanted to go a foot
Right
shorter.
over there?
Yep.
Okay, on that right side, yeah. Okay. Did Eric have anything to say about that? The traffic engineer, sorry.
I believe Eric's comment was with respect to the drive lanes and widths of the parking space for practical access into the parking spaces, that is, was focused on the drive lane width for the parking lot behind 401 Bridge.
Right, okay.
So at the very least, the parking lot or the parking area that has spaces 3 through 19, we didn't have any comments from Eric on that in terms of the width and length.
All right, that's it. But, the window treatment that Mr. Boyle talked about and you presented here on the eastern part of your 4-unit building, your eastern side. I don't know, I for one, I'd like to see you put something in there, even if it's just, along the front portion that you can see from the street. I just have a problem with a blank wall.
Well, I think we're willing to work with planning and development.
As long as you,
I am willing to work with them on that. I always look at it as if it's such a tight little alley there, and then somebody can jump in a window and not see someone, maybe on the second floor, but maybe we can decorate it up we can dress it up with something else.
something in there that, instead of just a blank wall. The curbing along the eastern edge of the parking lot, you had indicated that you would not use granite curbing?
No, we'd plan on using, the only reason we're putting the curbing in is we're trying to get a step up because of the
Yeah.
slope of the street. So we're trying to get a step up, and we're trying to step everything up in order to, keep the grades.
Okay.
Yeah. I would never use, asphalt, what they call the Cape Cod berm. It just doesn't last. I'll put 4,000-pound concrete. It'll last. These aren't something we sell. We maintain these. We keep them, and we're over there all the time.
Sure. Okay, just one other comment regarding the handicap parking, whether there's 1 or 2 spaces. I do think we need some clarification on the ADA requirements for the whole development.
If it's an issue, it's not a problem with me.
Yeah, I mean, we want to conform, that's all,
It's fine.
properly. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Milovich, any questions or comments?
Yeah, the 4-unit building is rental,
Yes.
because no condominium development.
No, it's rentals. Yeah.
Okay. I think the project is appropriate for the site. I like the mix. It's residential as you go up the street, and it's mixed use on Bridge Street. Feels good to the neighborhood. I understand Mr. Boyle's comments about the setback on the 4-unit building, but I don't think there's much of a difference there in the street line. And I think it provides visual open space and trees and grass for the people across the street. Gives it some breadth. We have an area here that's very vegetated, and I think it's good for the lower end of 3rd Street to have something like that. I think the deed restrictions are a great idea on the 4-unit building. And as I heard, I think most, if not all, of the comments by the city departments seem to be being addressed.
Yeah, we've addressed most of them already.
I really don't have any particular problem with this project.
Thank you, Bob. I just have a couple of questions. I know where your snow storage is, but the back would be next to, what is it, parking lot would be like by parking number 19, is it? And then you have some more by the usable open space?
Yes.
How would you get access to the part that says the snow storage, which is to the left of the usable open space? Is there, I know you have a walkway going back there, and you have the concrete curb that you proposed, so I'm not sure how it gets towards the usable open space.
Well, what we would do is,
No, you said you plow it, so I'm sure you have an idea of how to
right,
get
no,
there.
we plow it, we would plow everything to the snow storage in the back corner, and like worst-case scenario, take up space number 11, because that's an extra space.
Okay.
But if we get these big storms like we did last week, we own a property on 369 Mammoth Road, we have to bring our Bobcat in and start trucking it out. But we may bring the Bobcat over there and just pile it on top of the curb, because our hatch area, our landscape area, the city wanted us to put in a landscape area that divided the parking lot with the usable open space. So we've pushed that back 5 feet,
Okay.
you know. So the snow would be piled up right in front.
So by looking at it, I wasn't sure how you actually, so you wouldn't actually plow it there?
No, we'd have to lift it up with that would be excess snow.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you feel you have enough to put it on the parking lot space as now, and let it get...
We do,
heavy stuff?
we
Okay.
do, yep. Unless you get a storm like we did.
Yeah, and
2
then I
weeks
know a
ago.
lot of contractors, when it gets that big, they might have to take it off-site.
And we do have our own equipment.
Okay.
Yep.
I do like the fact of the usable open space in the rear of the buildings. I think, you know, people sitting there with these nice decks you have, the 6x12, I know if I was sitting there, I would rather see the open space to watch young children out there, and no disrespect to anybody, if you put parking back there, you know, the average person's gonna go out and work on their own cars and everything else, but I think with the open space, you can actually sit on your own deck and
Yep.
watch your kids play ball. I think for this young lady who's here tonight, I'm sure she'd rather have the more open space than the cars parked
Yep.
back there. And you know, I know open space is tight up there, and the more you can get for buildings like this, people are, you know, more inclined to go right. Is there a way to get down off the deck to go to the open space, or they have to come through the front and go around the back?
No, there is, the steps, everything will be like an
Okay.
8-inch step.
So you could come right off the deck and go right to the backyard?
Yes,
Okay, so anybody who's sitting there could actually watch anybody play right there?
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought that was a good idea for the open space there, because it's tight up there. Now, who parks there now? Because I know when I was there yesterday afternoon, there was a lot of cars.
There's a lot of cars there that aren't registered, to be honest with you, right now. There's gotta be at least 5.
Yeah, I saw quite a bit of cars.
5 are just, they're not registered and they just left there. So that's gonna be an issue for us. And then, you know, people just come, friends come, and they use it as a parking area. I mean, there's a van over there that's been there since we started this project. It hasn't moved. In fact, when it snows, nobody moves them, so it's just a nightmare. They're out there trying to shovel.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, 'cause I noticed there was quite a bit up there. Okay, what was the other question? So in these totes here, the ones that are behind your building, they'll just be brought up to the front?
Correct.
And those go by your 4-foot walkways, which are what? What are those, gonna be concrete? What is the?
Yes.
The 4 feet and the 3
Yeah,
foot?
we're planning on using the porous concrete. Again, we're trying to get the water to flow into the ground, so that walkway will be the porous concrete that allows for water penetration.
We look at Bridge Street, so this area here now, that's just a vacant lot that's there now, right?
Correct.
That consists of, okay. I think that, you need to give me one more second here. Oh, I know that we had one comment about the fire department had no problems, but I take it you must, gonna put the automatic sprinkler systems in there?
Oh, absolutely, have to by code.
Yeah,
Yep.
plus I know they're a lot better when it comes to your insurance.
Yep.
I mean, they prefer them, and obviously, it's a lot safer. In regards to, you know, the setback on the property. I don't have too much of a problem if you do put the trees in there. I know how we try to pull as close as we can to the street. I know you have a problem with the grade there. But I think it isn't as crucial due to the fact that you're coming off a parking lot.
Yep.
Where the parking lot was, if that was set back 3 feet, then you were going back so far, then the next house was 3 feet, I think it would break up your contour.
Yep.
So now, when you're coming off the parking lot, you're going to that, if you have the treescape, and then go to the next house that's closer. And I totally understand what you're saying about the permits, how close they are to the street.
Yep.
And a lot of times, people do like to be back a little further from the streets and don't have the street noise.
Yep.
So, I mean, I know it's, either way you look at it, you want the trees there, you try to accommodate it both each ways, and it gets difficult.
We've tried to accommodate everybody.
I know you spend time with staff, as you indicated. I know it's been a long planning and working, so a lot of the things that we're hashing out for the first time, as you indicate, you've already hashed out over and over again. So, and I think, and I know you said basically on here, one of the main things was for the building material, you'd be willing to work with staff on that.
Absolutely.
And, for the architectural details to, basically look like, I do know what the police station there looks like, and that is a very nice looking building.
Yep.
and something
Yeah,
like
we
that.
maintain it, yep.
Yeah. Now, what type of architect would you do on the proposed building on Bridge Street? Would that be,
It's going to be very similar to a typical storefront, the commercial space with raised panels and chamfered concrete and a lot of glass. And then it's going to look like a building that was there in the 1900s, using today's modern construction, modern materials.
I think I had. No, I think that concludes my questions. Thank you. Any of the board members have any follow-ups?
Mr. Chairman, I had one other question.
Mr. Jenner?
Relative to the condos, are they going to be for sale, or are you going to
No,
rent
no,
them?
they're not condos, they're apartments. We maintain,
So everything's going to be rented?
they're just rented, yeah.
Okay, all right. If you're ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman,
Sure. I believe we do need two motions, right, Aaron? One for the special permit, one for the site plan.
That's correct.
All right. Yes.
so I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan review with the following conditions. Request that the building commissioner review the need for additional handicap spaces on the 14 to 16 3rd Street lot and provide an additional one if necessary. That the builder will provide vertical granite curb along the eastern side of the parking lot on the 14 to 16 3rd Street lot. That the applicant will work with DPD to select an appropriate barrier that will prevent cars from driving on the landscape side, on the western side of the parking lot, on the 14 to 16 3rd Street lot. That the applicant will provide private pickup of waste and recycling with totes at each of the units. And relative to number 11 on the Joe's memo, that the applicant will work with DPD to choose appropriate building materials and provide that information and architectural details to the board. And relative to number 8 on Joe's memo, that you will work with DPD to provide some type of window treatment on the easterly side of the unit. That makes sense?
Yep.
And that there will be a covenant restricting commercial use on the documents. I don't know if anybody had anything else they wanted to add.
Yeah, I'll second the motion, and I'd like to add, we still need a full sign-off from the city engineers. Is that not correct, Aaron?
That's correct,
There are items there that
particularly the
need to be-
stormwater drainage report and operation and maintenance, yes.
Okay, that, we haven't got an official fire department confirmation that they have no problem with this?
I think
Or do
Aaron
we?
said he received one.
We
by
did
staff.
get
did, all right, I
we
didn't
got
get
an
it.
email.
Okay,
Okay.
so not that one. I'd like to add one relative to working with the Department of Planning and Development to try to, the frontage that Mr. Boyle was talking about, just to see what we can't do to maintain the consistency on the street, and have that as a condition of approval, to work with them specifically on that. guess that's all.
In Mr. Gendron's original motion, he had one item which referenced number 11, working with the DPD on building materials. I see that one is specific to 401 Bridge Street. Okay, then I think that's a good idea, Dick, to add a separate motion, a separate condition specific to the 3rd Street building, that they will work with DPD on architectural details for the building on 3rd Street. Is that the gist of your thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to go into detail about what they should work with DPD on? Architectural details, window treatments.
Well, maybe also confer with the historic board staff to, do whatever you can to the 401 to,
Oh, I plan to.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. We'll work directly with him. The planning and development has already sent me some facade pictures and things that they're trying to achieve.
Just work as close as you can.
Yeah,
with
I
them.
mean, it's
Incorporate.
what I love to do, so it's not a problem.
I think that would cover it.
Okay.
I think the only thing I'd add is, I think that was indicated from Plan and Development, is that number 401 Bridge Street has to maintain the necessary parking, as well as the other unit has to maintain the necessary parking, because I think that, Steve, you raised the issue if they broke it off, would they have the parking or not?
Yeah.
I think Aaron mentioned that if we made the condition that 401 retains the necessary parking, that could be covered for therefore both units. If the one was sold off, that the other one wouldn't have the parking.
Right, so the condition is that there will be an easement
An easement.
to allow, 401 Bridge Street to maintain the necessary parking.
Right, and I think you said you had that, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I think we have a motion made, is that,
Second.
motion made and second, with all the conditions. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes. 5 in favor. Now we need a motion for the special permit.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit with the same conditions.
I second the motion.
Motion made in the second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes as well. 5 in favor and none against. Good luck, sir.
Thank
Wish you
you.
well.
Good luck.
We'll be checking on your project, hopefully it looks nice.
Need a permit over there.
I'm sorry. Okay, moving along, if the board matters don't mind, maybe I'm gonna jump to the pre-app session, and we'll go back to the Lowell Comprehensive Master Plan if we may. So moving along, we have a new, under business, we have a pre-app session for 142 Chestnut Street. The following individuals has requested the planning board to provide a preliminary review of their proposed project to the address listed above. This is not a public hearing. The planning board will not render any decisions in regards to site plan or guarantee any future decision, whether positive or negative, on the project. The applicant is Kendall Relocating, Inc. The proposal includes restoration of the Talbot House, raising of convent dormitory building of the, Holy Union of the Sacred Heart Nuns to develop a row house-style residential development. The property is located in the traditional multi-family zoning district and will seek site plan review from the planning board under section 11.3 of the zoning code. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, board members, George Cialides Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. I was just sitting back there dreaming, wouldn't it be nice if the department deferred and let us go on next, and the chairman came right to our rescue and made the suggestion, and we appreciate that. I'm here this evening with two Matts and two Georges, well, I being one of them. This is Matt Piccioni. He's the owner of the property. The other Matt you've seen once or twice before, I think, Mr. Hammer from Hancock Engineering. This is George Theodoro, another George, my associate in the office, who I've been trying to encourage to spend more time in the permitting business, but I think after sitting through 3.5-hour meetings the last 3 weeks or last whatever, and then tonight, I think he's being dissuaded, but we're still working. Anyway, you can all sit down. I just wanted you to meet the team, and I'm going to be as brief as I can possibly be. How about that?
Sometimes.
Basically, this gentleman, Matt, has been in the construction and development business in and around eastern Massachusetts, mostly Woburn towards Lowell, but also a lot in Boston around Marlborough Street since 1988. About a year and a half ago, he bought what I think is just a great property, Chestnut Street, Park Street, and East Merrimack Street. It's like a walled enclave. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. You can't, I don't think, live in the city and not run into it at one point or another in your life. Right across the street from Kittredge Park, which is just a dynamite little place in the city as well. And Matt, a year and a half ago or so, when he bought it, had no idea what he could do with it. They weren't the greatest of times. Builders weren't doing too much building or whatever. And so he just sort of sat on it for a while. Then he locked up with Mr. Hammer at some point, and they came to see me with a beautiful 12 single-family new house development. And I said, oh my God, you're going to ruin the neighborhood. So just my own architectural viewpoint. And when I looked at the thing in terms of the brick all over the place in there and whatever, to me, it spelled special neighborhood and special treatment for this neighborhood. And the difficult thing, of course, was that there's a whole bunch of brick inside those brick walls as well. By the way, I'm sure you've been by it. There are really only two brick walls. The one on the East Merrimack Street side is, I think, more like the canal stone or whatever. But anyway, so the question was, what do you do with it? And I thought, and I encouraged Mr. Piccioni to think about row houses, and bought him a book the first time I met him on row houses, and then we talked on the telephone one day as a follow-up, and I said to him, well, you ought to go to Louisburg Square in Boston sometime and get an idea of what I think I'm talking about here with a way with a nice centerpiece that has sort of a real neighborhood touch to it. And he said to me, I'm driving through there right now, so he certainly got the hint when we talked about it. Then we said, well, we have to deal with the historic people, the board, and see what they're going to say and talk about the Talbot House. If you look at the rendering that we have at this point, that was the mansion, as we call it, that went with that site. And we met with representatives. Well, we met with Steve Stowell, obviously, at the beginning, and then Steve brought us together with some of his members, including your member, Mr. Lockhart, who they were all nice enough to come and take a look at the place, and we started with that idea. Actually, I think we dragged Aaron to the first meeting. So we wanted everyone to get a view of this thing and what we could do. So we realized that aside from the Talbot House, the one in the center there, the rest of it is nothing more than like a brick motel. There's no beauty to it, there's no significance to it or anything like that. And quite honestly, I wasn't that enthralled by the Talbot House itself, but that's not my decision. So anyway, make the long story short, we've come up with 2 or 3 different plans. Matt's going to show you what they are. The most recent iteration came as a result of our most recent meeting. We've been working with Aaron and all the folks and Adam, for that matter, who's the most recent plan, is sort of a new iteration of his own thoughts on the property too. And so that's it. Matt, you can take it from there and show these folks where we're going. This is just all preliminary, so we're looking for help, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. So, let's go back to what's there now. There was a convent on the property. What we have here is Kittredge Park here, Chestnut Street, Nesmith. We have Park Street here and East Merrimack Street. This section of the building right now, which is connected to the other parts of the building, was a convent, and the convent vacated out of the premises, I believe, 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. And I've actually looked at this property a number of times with many different developers, trying to get many different people to try to reuse the existing building. And I have to say, I've actually looked at the reuse of this building at least 6 times for different uses, and it's just been troubling the way it's configured and the way that the existing building is. So the existing mansion, from what we can tell right now, was right here, and that was known as the Talbot House. Some of the original ornamentation, the entranceway is still there. The inside of the building is in pretty bad shape, with it not being heated and maintained over time. It's been converted in various ways by the previous use. This is connected here with this section here to enter what was the main convent area. There was a chapel here and a common area for eating, and then there were dormitories within the building itself. There's an entrance drive off of Chestnut Street here, which comes into this area here, which is paved, some parking here. There's a 1-story brick garage, a little bit of parking here, and then the main entrance is here. This section here, we think, was possibly part of an old garage to the mansion itself, and included in the original development of the entire property. There's an entrance here off of East Merrimack Street that comes into a bituminous area here, where there was various parking spots within that section. This entire area here is lawn area with some walkways. There are some predominant features here, which is what we're calling a canal stone wall, which is in various forms of condition. The water's seeping through the wall right now, and it's actually coming inside of the wall and expanding and contracting, and it's breaking down in many sections of the wall. This is a brick wall that's in fairly good condition. It's stepped along here, heading down Park Street, and then this area is bricked here. So that gives you an idea of the existing conditions on the property. We started with a development style here in an effort to create what we thought was going to be this row house style development. We first met with the Historic Commission and the DPD, and everyone thought that would be a great style for a development. So this is the plan here that we started, trying to incorporate an interior drive, utilizing, move this over a little bit. Oh, excuse me. Interior drive, utilizing porous pavement, and we were trying to create an interior park inside, and to create just a quality interior space, having all the drives and the parking so they wouldn't be visible from the street, and to create this look here. And this was a rendering that we did. Looking from Kittredge Park, this would be the fully renovated Talbot House, and these would be the row-style houses on either side. Then we went to the historic board and presented this project. And when we were at the historic board, they thought, why don't we give the Talbot House some room to breathe, more indicative to its natural feel. Right now, there's actually a little plaza here that's more of a landscape plaza. I don't know exactly what it was used for. And we have this listed as a 54-inch chestnut street, so we were thinking, well, we'll try to save the chestnut tree. It's a big tree. It is Chestnut Street. We've come to find out today, meeting with an arborist, that it's actually not a chestnut tree. And the arborist actually did not know the species of the tree that it was.
5 feet.
But we've now found out that the tree has 3 critical flaws to it. One is that it's got what they call crown rot. The top had busted off, and it's rotting from the top down.
Really?
And we've also learned that it has what they call trunk rot. So because it's so close to the building and it's close to these other brick members, that the root system has been constricted by the walls of the house and the hardscape around the tree. And a third issue is right now woodpeckers are doing a toll on the tree. So when you go up and look at the tree, it's not as good a condition as we would have liked to have been. But the concept of providing some space around the mansion to give it some predominance of the development made sense. And when we were at the historic board meeting, one of the comments that came up from Mr. Adam Backey was, what if we flipped the units that were currently here and flip them 90 degrees in an effort to save some of the main trees on the property. So we did that. That was this plan. We actually have another plan that I didn't bring with you, but we can also provide an additional entranceway off of Chestnut Street as well with this configuration. But after thinking about that plan, if I'm here and I want to go down to Nesmith Street, you're going to want to keep traveling through the project, and it defeats the purpose of having this one entrance off of Park Street. So then we submitted this plan over. This has all been happening fairly quickly, although we've been talking with everyone for a few months. These additional plans have been happening just in the last week. So we apologize for not adding a tremendous amount of detail to these plans. But when we submitted these to DPD and met with them last week, another idea came about, and that was to even provide more space around the Talbot House, and also provide more passive view to Kittredge Park from many of the units in this development, which made a lot of sense too. Originally, we were thinking that creating the park was going to be a big benefit within the project, and then we realized, well, we have Kittredge Park. So, if you want to talk about quality open space, we have Kittredge Park. That's a beautiful park, and now looking at this, what has become our newest scenario here, in great part to Mr. Adam Backey and his responsiveness to the change in plans that we've been providing. This is becoming our latest plan now, is to have the space around the Talbot House to really have that become a focal point of this development, and then to get all the passive views through the project, have unrestricted pedestrian access to Kittredge Park through the project, and to you know, and this is what the process is all about, is to go through what we think is the necessary discussions that we need to have a better project, and also to come here as an informal meeting. And we want to get your comments on the project as well. I want to point out a couple of the important features that we want to do is, with our interior drive, we've always been incorporating what would be quality shade trees along the entrance drive, and more can be added to this plan. But we have always envisioned to have a nice line of consistent trees to make the project have quality trees within it. We've also had discussions about whether to preserve the original wall that's around here, make saw cuts for the entranceways, and preserve the wall. But the wall's at various scales, so it's hard to determine how the scale of the wall is going to affect or detract from the entranceways, as well as trying to incorporate quality landscaping from the wall to the building, and the effects that the shading is going to have depending on the heights of the walls and where the landscaped areas are positioned, how the wall would affect the space between the wall and the units. Our idea was that if you go to the property now, you'll see these pilasters and wrought iron elements around the mansion itself, and it's incorporated into the brick members, the brick wall that's there. And our thought was, what if we took all the bricks that were there, created the brick pilasters, and created a wrought iron brick pilaster entranceway, brick pilaster, wrought iron around the entire project? Because the canal stone on the East Merrimack side is in bad shape, and we didn't know what the effects would be if you start to cut into the wall and to put in nice 5-foot wide wrought iron gates, which was our original idea, that we wanted to preserve the wall. What are the effects going to be on the structural integrity of that wall if we start to cut into it, and is it going to look decent? So we're not set on any way that we'd like to see it, but once we saw this in a rendering form, we can see how it can add benefit with people walking down the street, the effects of the light transmission through the wrought iron to have quality landscaping between the wrought iron and the building. And I think it's just going to look like a beautiful project if we could incorporate that around the entire project. So that was our intention here. And you know, we want to get some comments from the board and to get your thoughts on what we're proposing.
Garages, Matt?
Yeah, I apologize. We're going to have garages on the back side.
Nice.
Of all these units, these townhouses. So it'll not only have a garage here, but also a space in front of it. And we're also going to do a study and analyze all the on-street parking in the area. And we're going to do 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night, and also an 11 o'clock at night analysis of the on-street parking to get an idea of whether there is ample on-street parking for some visitors that come, and you usually accommodate for 2.5 spaces, whether we can utilize the on-street parking to support our project if in fact we're taking up so much of the street parking with our entire lot as it is now. Did I leave out anything?
I think so, for now.
Okay.
Get some comment. And I think certainly Mr. Lockhart can speak to this, but I would say that when we went to the historic board, there was some unanimity that this was, I mean, this is a neighborhood unto itself, and yet it fits into the entire neighborhood there. Across East Merrimack Street is mostly an apartment kind of area. Park Street has a couple of, in fact, none of them are single family anymore. the former Elias property now contains 3 buildings, 3 apartment buildings, with some famous residents in there, I being one of them. I've never been more than a half a mile away from this location in my entire life in the city. In fact, I used to walk through Kittredge Park on my way downtown or to Lowell High all the time. It's such a beautiful area. And when you, and I was at first an advocate for keeping the wall up because I had this idea of sort of a walled, safe area or whatever, but they all talked me into, I think, the idea of opening it up so that the people in there, and that's the other concept of you can, everybody, almost every one of those units will be able to get a partial view of the park and all of what's there if we can do it that way, and vice versa. I think people in the park will get a view of this beautiful concept. So anyway, I already talked too much on Mr. Malovich, so I'll just stop there. And we'd love to hear from you folks what your gut reaction, as they say, might be.
I think, one thing that we did discuss at the historic board was you had one plan, and it was that one, and it showed 2 rows of townhouses. And I think I made the comment that you were running the danger of, maybe negatively impacting the neighborhood character over there, because there's nothing with rows of townhouses in the area. And then I remember Adam said, well, it probably doesn't make that much difference on East Merrimack Street because, that's kind of what it looks like today. My point is that tonight, the applicant has taken our input, and there's 2 other versions of this right now, one of which I like because it breaks that up a little bit. This one here, the one you showed, Matt. Yeah, that one there, it kind of negates that row effect. There's one thing that still bothers me, though. I know there is a curb cut down the bottom left-hand side of that. It is the 1 entrance and 1 exit for the whole complex, and I wonder about the safety of that and what the fire department might think about it. Although you get access all around, it's still, and your traffic flow within the development might be better off if you had that other curb cut opening down there. And I think you could do that and still maintain the number of units you have.
Bob, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, are these gonna be condominiums? They're for sale?
For rent.
They're a rental?
Rent, really?
Okay.
But they'll start in a condominium fashion.
Excuse me.
What's the unit sizes?
Matt can give you a
The
better.
unit sizes are 1,200 square feet. In the Talbot House, we'll have 4 800 and 900 square foot units.
Are they 1 bedroom or 2?
Single bedrooms inside the Talbot House renovation.
But the others are all 2 bedroom?
There'll be 2 bedrooms, yes. They will have a bonus room, but they're gonna be considered 2 bedrooms. There's gonna be enough space in the lower portion of the building where the drive-under garage is, if someone wanted to convert a utility room to a small office down there. And there's the potential of putting in some small amount of space, possibly in a loft area.
It's TMF.
Anything else, Bob? Do you have any questions?
I'm assuming then the look is still going to be maintained, the elevation and the rendering we have here, so that's still the look of the units on East Merrimack.
So, Dan, so what happened was, the rendering was prepared for the historic board.
Right.
And then we've already gone to 2 other concepts. So, in fact, there was another rendering before that one. So this is the second rendering for this project, and we haven't really gotten into the meat of it
Jack wasn't gonna
yet.
do one for free, right, if you're gonna?
Yeah. So we're like, yeah, you gotta do another rendering in 3 days. So, this right here would maintain the same. This style will maintain the same. We're talking about architectural elements with Steve in the historic board, whether, there's a preference right now not to have shutters. So we probably wouldn't have shutters.
Oh, okay.
And
So we're looking at shutters right now, but
Yeah.
saying, okay.
And some of the finer details will be what the historic board wants. So this project is meant to incorporate all the input from the DPD, the historic board, the planning board, to make this a project for everyone to have input on. And we're not, we're trying to make this a project that involves everybody so that, so everybody's happy with the project.
I must say, I like the idea of the wrought iron fence. For what you touched on briefly is when you're talking about landscaping, and you're talking about plantings and grass, and the sun can get in there.
Right.
As well, otherwise, you've got that compound, and basically, it's a great place to grow moss, and that's about the size of it, so, I think that'll add tremendously to the,
As I said recently, they're not too old to learn, and that's another thing I found out about the wall as being a potential problem, that,
Sure.
that opening it up will make the landscape much more effective.
sure. And then you're utilizing, again, the views of Kittredge Park is actually a selling point of the units at some point. Like every other builder right now, they're being built to be rented. When the market turns around, they will be sold. And they will be, I think, attractive units for people, so, sure. So that's the only comments I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jennett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to say it's kind of nice to hear Mr. Frichette's voice. He's so quiet there during that last. It's always good to hear your comments. We miss you when you're not talking. What's the square footage on the land area?
1.25 acres.
1.25 acres, so that's about 60,000 square feet?
Yep,
So will you be violating the land area per dwelling unit?
we will.
Yeah, so that's a problem.
Yes,
I have a real problem with that.
We need some variances in that regard.
Yeah.
I would rush to point out that the property I just mentioned at the Elias Estate, the apartments there, the lot is approximately the same size, currently has 60 units on it. And the parking.
I would encourage you to try and stay within the land area per dwelling unit square footage. I think that would make it I think we have it for a reason. I actually think it's, despite the fact that there are certainly examples around the city we can point to where it's violated, but I think that, I actually think it's rather generous. I don't think it's intended to keep the density to a reasonable level. Okay, this is right on in the Belvedere neighborhood. There's a lot of it's on the border of a single-family neighborhood. I feel like, we should strive to keep this within that land area per dwelling unit. That's my feedback on that. And Aaron, is stacked parking, is that allowed in this instance? I can never remember what the regulations are about that.
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a legitimate way to get 2 cars, have the garage and a car packed in front of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think what you have here seems like an attractive project. I think it could be really nice. I'd rather see condos as opposed to rentals, but, as Mr. Frichette points out, maybe that'll be the ultimate, the way that this is dealt with. I think it could be a really nice project, but I would really like to see you reduce the density to keep it within those parameters.
You've heard it before, I know, but the fact of the matter is that in order to encourage the row house and the brick, it was a question of beating up on Mr. Piccioni a little bit, and of course you get into, well, how many units do I get for how much I'm spending? You get into the economics of it all. And
It's easy. You take the square footage and you divide it by 2,500, and that's where you start.
yeah.
you gotta try to make it work within that parameter. That's my opinion. You're here to ask my
No,
opinion,
yeah,
so
no,
I thought
I
I'd
hear
give it to
you, and I'm just saying that that's the difficult part, because, again,
Then you run the risk of not being approved, right? Because you need those approvals, and I think this is a particularly sensitive piece of land. So, in my estimation, it's going to be one that has to be looked at carefully when it comes to that land area per dwelling unit matter.
I'm certainly, the last thing in the world I want to do is get into any kind of a controversy on that particular thing, and I think we have to look at it in terms, again, of some of the tweaking and everything that we want to do there. But to me, the neighborhood handles what is the current appearance or the current plan. That's just my viewpoint. And I know that's contrary to what the current zoning situation is. But I don't think, especially where we're on 3 streets there, and again, I'm very familiar with the area and who parks there and what's around there, because I go by it every single day, twice, 2, 3 times a day. And to me, by being able to put 2 cars into every site, into every house on site there, just solves a big part of the problem as far as the density goes, I think.
Well, I disagree. And
I know, I
you're the
simply-
attorney for the applicant, and you have a different viewpoint on the situation. I'm on the board. I get a vote. You don't. And you're asking my opinion, and I'm telling you, you should.
Of course.
We stay
I
within the
understand
code.
that.
You can do
I
whatever you
understand
want.
that. Well understood.
Okay, thank you. Am I to understand that each unit will have a 2-car garage?
No.
A 1-car garage?
Right.
Okay.
And the garage is going to be an under,
And for-
basically,
and-
with
and
the other space, the other car going in the space in front of it.
I see,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, Mr. Gendron's point about the land area per dwelling unit, I take very well. I'm perhaps not as absolute about it. I see what he's getting at. Where this is across the street from Kittredge Park, so that there is that open space, I guess I could be talked into supporting something if it was a really special project. You know, a really special project, which this could be. Preserving that house and enhancing it, that's something that matters. Really getting the detailing right, that's something that matters. On these, the plans you've presented, I was at the site. That little meditation area you mentioned, that's in front of the giant knot chestnut tree, I think the preservation of that is a very important consideration. I am. Yeah, I think that space is,
Special.
yes, it's special. It has a feel. It's an important part of the character of the neighborhood. Preserving that space, and the space, of course, is defined by the walls around it. So that's part of preserving that space, is making sure that it is actually that space. It's not a square foot rectangle that is in that area that isn't built on. I'm talking about preserving that special place. That's an excellent point about the second entrance that Mr. Lockhart raised. This is an awful lot. I'm all for minimizing curb cuts. I really am. But this is a lot of units. This is a lot of units to rely on one entrance. I'd be worried about that. Even if it was just sort of an emergency access, instead of being paved, if it was like an 8 or 10 foot wide cobble walkway that could, in an emergency, be used as a second access, that would make me feel a little more comfortable. You've got your entrance coming in off Park Street. And on all of these plans, Park Street is looking at sides. It's not looking at fronts of any buildings. You've got, like you say, you have 3 streets, and you address 2 of them very nicely, and then you give me the sides of 2 townhouse units on the 3rd Street. I would like to see fronts, or at least the facades that face that address that street as if they are the front of a building. You understand what I mean by that?
Yes.
Okay? For example, with front porches, but we don't need to trot over that ground again. I look at this picture, and you know what really makes this? You have you articulate multiple heights and setbacks. The way you've got this little side piece, and then you've got this side piece, and then something behind it, okay? And you have this roof height and this roof height. That, I'm not surprised that you chose that to be the side that you show us. That is what really makes this interesting, and what makes the huge bulk that you are proposing, what makes it work and feel intimate, is that you have that multiple articulation. And the problem is that you only have it there. What you've got along East Merrimack Street are the fronts of several townhouses. I like the way that you've paired them and set them, I can't think of the verb right now, but you've staggered, thank you. You staggered them up and back. That's a good design choice. But more of that multiple articulation, if some of these could be, if you could perhaps in a couple of places, for example, along that long stretch of units along East Merrimack Street, if you could somehow work that same concept in so that it's not just fronts of townhouses one after another, row houses all the way down the street, that would, make it more like this. That would really address that concern. Yeah, those were my 4. Those were my 4 points. The other bit about the wall. I would be very pleased. I don't want to tell you what to do with the wall. I would like to see you come in and tell me, we came up with this really exciting idea. We're preserving this bit, and this bit over here, and we're doing these. We're incorporating perhaps this as this part of the wall will be the bottom half of the facade that's along this row, bottom half of the facade of the building. You work the wall into it. It's a hassle, it's a problem, it's also an asset, and if you can use it in an interesting way, you can win my heart.
It's been the most difficult part of the thing to deal with, because we've had a lot of people, including myself, with a similar viewpoint, but there's just so many other little facets to it. We've had a lot of suggestions, but we'll continue to delve into that, because I agree with you. It's the landmark, in a sense, to the property.
But it is the landmark, but at the same time, I don't think anybody here would put the preservation of the entire wall as even a particularly desirable goal. I don't think that the best design for this site preserves that whole wall. I think that taking out some of it would give us a better design. But if some of it could be incorporated in and and your design built around it, that would really, that would make the idea of, 24 townhouse units plus 4 other units, that would make it fit the neighborhood and go down a lot smoother.
Yeah, for instance, that's a good point. I went back to the site again, 'cause I've been many times, and I keep focusing on some of the aspects that keep coming up during meetings. And if you go back and look at the wall on Park Street, it's in pretty good shape. It's got some nice staggering to it. And we have talked about keeping that entire section here and wrapping it around and then have that work into a detailed scale on the ends of these units, which we have had discussion with,
Is that,
to incorporate some of that into the project. So, you know, we're gonna, you know, we've talked with Steve Stoll about that, and go back and look at the wall, figure out how we can incorporate elements of it and incorporate it into the design, so.
that idea about the wall along Park Street, that would answer a couple of my points, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if you go to Park Street and look at that wall, it's in really good shape, and it can easily be saved.
You know, a nicely done side of a townhouse unit with windows on the second floor,
That come out.
set back with a brick wall in front of it. It's a very different proposal than just the side of a townhouse. Okay.
Thank you.
Matt, while we're on the wall, how tall do you think the wall is?
It varies.
Yeah, I know it's pretty high. When I was up there.
Yeah, many places it's 5 to 6 feet.
In other places, a lot higher.
And on the canal stone, we're calling it the East Merrimack side, we're calling it the canal stone wall. It's approximately 8 feet tall.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess most of it's 8, Mr. Chairman.
Because on Park Street, what do you think it is on Park Street?
Well,
In Park
there's an
Street slopes.
embankment that comes up.
Yeah, and it goes down a little bit, heading towards East Merrimack. You have a little bit of
That's correct.
grade.
But the scale on that's not too bad. And I believe that one's about 6 feet tall.
I know when you
maybe
drive by
6
it, it's high enough, you don't really can't look in, you really can't see what's on the other side
Yeah,
of it
and
there.
it's because there's an embankment that comes up off of Park Street into the parcel there, so it's raised above Park Street a couple of feet. But if you walk up the embankment and then stand next to the wall, it's about 6 feet.
Because I know, like, if you keep it on Park Street, that's one, you know, if you keep on Chestnut Street, I don't know if you want it that high compared to what type of lighting you'd get for your
The
unit.
scale to the
7
building
foot.
as well.
So you want to keep the 4-story unit, you're going to keep that building, right?
Correct.
I know you said it was pretty old. How old do you think that building is, Matt? Can you tell offhand?
Well,
18.
early 1800s.
Yeah. I know by looking at it, you can tell it's
If you
old,
look
but I
If you
have no
look at one
idea.
of the old maps in the city manager's office, to the left as you come in, you can actually see that property on that map. So if you look at the old Lowell maps, you
That's
see this property.
mid-1800s, so I forget, we had all that information, I know.
When you do your parking survey, you're going to notice most of your cars are parked on East Merrimack Street, both sides.
Yep.
I mean, you don't have as many on Park Street, you don't have a lot on Chestnut Street.
Right.
And Nesmith Street's a very tough area to park because of the volume of the traffic. Especially the way, you know, how that is when you come in from the bridge, how it goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane in a real hurry, and if you don't get over there in a hurry, you know, it's pretty strange. Nowhere else in the city has it like that.
No.
I mean, really, you know.
You gotta know where you're going.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you're new in town, forget it. I mean, you have to know with that light. So for the 4 proposed units, the parking would be in front. And how many spaces would you have there?
Right here, we have 8, excuse me,
Because I noticed that one looks like it's kind of narrow there in the middle.
we have 11.
Okay. Okay. For units, the back row units, 11 through 24, would their way to Kittredge Park be by the proposed 5-foot wide sidewalk, or there'd be any other way for it to cut through?
There'll be some additional walkways.
Okay. But I'm on plan as of right now.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into,
Okay.
for instance, if we were to save this here, you'd probably have a walkway come in with a set of stairs that would come down.
Yeah. Because obviously, you know, 3 through 6, 7 through 10, then we have to walk right out onto Chestnut Street.
Conversely, we're talking about having a walkway that would bring you out to East Merrimack as well, and probably a walkway that might bring you down.
Because the main thing, I mean, if you want to utilize the park, you'd want to make sure that you had, you know, accessible walkways from 11 to 24 to make it get there a little easier.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think you have a lot of green space on the plan, so I imagine you have places to put your pot, I mean, your snow removal in some of the corners or whatever.
Yep.
I'm sure you can find spaces there once you figure out which way you're going with it, huh?
And we would do that, the private disposal as well with the blue containers here.
Oh, okay, I mean,
There wouldn't
for
be
the
a-
trash pickup?
That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
You know, I don't, I see your entrance coming in, going out. You know, I don't think you'd have a problem with your fire department, because they can access every unit here from all the surrounding streets. I mean, it's not like they can't get to them. You know, obviously, on your new plan, you'd mark down where the hydrants are to make sure that you have them sufficient, but, you know, they're treated from anyone in the streets, so they really wouldn't have to go in that way to get to anywhere.
And we would have an interior hydrant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, you know, they would probably, you know, do it right from the street, most likely. I mean, you know.
We're gonna loop a water line through this project,
Yeah.
and we'll have a hydrant inside, I'm sure.
Because I'm saying, they wouldn't have to go through the entrance to get to them the way they're set up. They would probably do it from the street.
Speaking with Mr. Lemire, they like to access a building from one side and stage, and then they come up with their plan as to how to address a fire, so, but again, they'll be able to come in if they need to.
Yeah,
And there's plenty of
exactly.
space between the buildings themselves, and that, I'm sure is an issue with the fire department, with the closeness of buildings.
So all these units here, they're gonna have a little bit of green space in front, huh? So you have like the parking in the garage and the parking one in front?
Yep.
I know that's acceptable in our zoning to have the one in the garage. I mean, some people utilize the garage for putting a car there, some people utilize it for putting the snow blower, the bikes, and all the other stuff, but it's acceptable under zoning, but we've raised that issue in the past, but we don't have the final say, and that city council decides about how we get the parking in, but I know that's acceptable. We've seen it before. What's the total, size of the whole lot?
1.25 acres.
An acre and a quarter?
1.25, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You said is there an entrance right now in East Merrimack? You said there's a way to get in that way?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, I mean, that's not used at all, is it? Because I don't mind
There's a gate there.
Okay, that's what I saw. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't think there was any way to get in that way, but.
There is a gate,
Right
it's
here.
locked.
Down here.
No, I'm talking about over here.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
yeah,
is-
there is, but that's.
Really
where
had to
the-
lock this place
there
up.
is a gate over
The people have gone in, they've taken all the copper out. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, we've had to have security there, trying to keep this place locked down, because they're starting to take over
Yeah.
and get in there, so.
But as Jerry said, I think it looks nice the way if you put the wrought iron up with the brick pillars
Yeah,
there.
just
It
the way
kinda,
it
you know,
does
and if you can tie it into your facade, I think it would dress it up nice. And, you know, if you break up the buildings as indicated by Mr. Boyle, it kind of, you know, instead of just give you a stacked dormitory look, instead it doesn't look like a barracks.
We have a balance that we're trying to do, which is trying not to have the units stick out of the ground too much, and trying to get a drive-under garage on the other side, so there's a balance of grading.
Yeah.
Going from one side to the other that we're trying to accomplish. In fact, the plan is right now, we're gonna be cutting, 2 to 4 feet out of the center in order to help balance the units, so that you don't have to walk up too many flights of stairs to get up to the
There is a
front door.
natural slope down too,
Yeah.
In which direction?
towards East Merrimack.
Yeah, it goes
That's
from
not
Park
towards
Street to
East
East Merrimack, yeah.
The 10-foot,
There's Street down to East Merrimack, yeah.
there's a 10-foot grade differential from here to here, and there's an 8-foot grade differential from here to here, and there's a slight differential about 6 feet from here to here. So it's, the site is like this.
Yeah, tilted towards the east, back to the East Merrimack Street
Yeah,
light.
from this corner down to this corner
Yeah,
down
I
here.
see.
So there's an engineering challenge there, but we feel as though we can get that accomplished.
So we're not in a big hurry, and Matt's looking at me when I say that. We're not in a big hurry, so we'd be glad anybody gets any other ideas over the next few days, weeks or so. If you can pass them on to me, Matt, or Aaron, be great. We want to come up with the right, I kept telling Matt I was going to make him into a new Lowell hero if he can do this the right way, because I think the possibilities here are fabulous, so.
One other thing is, if anyone wants to have a site walk, we could have a site walk with any of the board members.
Yes,
with the
yeah,
DPP
absolutely.
Anytime, and we could go out and.
Yeah, because it's
go to
hard to, I mean, you
site
can walk around it, but it's hard to really see the inside.
Yeah, we gotta, there's a.
Yeah, go up.
Like I
go
said,
up,
we've been,
it's
the place is
very
in lockdown, but we can get a key, we can get you in through the side so you don't have to jump over the gate, and
Or the
take
wall.
you for a walk around inside. Well, the only way to get over is actually through the gate, which is a little precarious with the wrought iron. But there's a key to this gate here.
Okay.
And I can come up and meet you guys anytime to take you through if you wanted to get together as a group and go through and walk through, we can go into the mansion itself and take a look around. We've done it 4 or 5 times already with various people from the historic and the DPW.
Mr. Lockhart can tell you it's a
Yeah,
very
we all went
interesting
up
layout.
and toured the house, and
Yeah.
it's, you really get obviously a better feel.
Sure, I mean, I know.
The project, and it's,
When you go around the wall there, it's hard to
Yeah.
conceptual look inside and figure it out.
it's just an interesting plot of land. It's got all kinds of
Like I
potential.
said, we'll get you in there and meet you out there anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah.
Wish you well. Thank you.
Project.
It's 14 townhouses, 18 feet wide. No, here. This stretch. 14 townhouses, 18 feet wide, that's 252 feet.
So the whole historic board went up there, Rich?
2 unbroken feet.
Yeah, like 4 or 5.
Look at that wall, it's so high up, it's hard to see how that.
It is, yeah. There's a little gate on the East Merrimack side, but you can walk right in.
252 unbroken feet of building.
That's a lot.
They should be straight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's that.
Okay, moving along on the agenda, we have election of officers. It came to our attention that we need a representative for the Historic Board for a 2-year term. I know back in October, we voted in Mr. Lockhart for a 1-year term, and then Aaron and I were speaking to each other and indicated that they need somebody for a 2-year term. Huh, Aaron, that's what they said for their review?
That's correct. I guess by legislation, the 2-year term starts also February 28th. So that would be a retroactive appointment.
So Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to appoint Richard Lockhart as the planning board representative to the historic board for a 2-year term.
I second that.
Motion is made in the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none. Chair votes yes, and good luck, Richard. We appreciate your work on the historic board. Moving along, we have a couple of matters for the zoning board of appeals that is scheduled for, let's see,
Pardon me,
March 25th?
Chairman, I don't mean to interrupt, but I feel like we just haven't got to the public hearing for the master
Yeah,
plan.
I forgot about that, okay, let me get back to that. Oh, yeah, could we skip it over? Okay, let's get back to that, we'll go to that first, okay. Let's go back to the Lowell comprehensive master plan, thank you for that, Aaron. I was trying to go in order, I missed it, so, in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81D, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to review and approve the substantial Lowell 2025 comprehensive update of the Lowell master plan, which was approved by the planning board in 2003. I know we received matters sent to us electronically to look at, and now we have a more hard copy. I know Aaron said they tried to get them to us earlier, but we have it for this evening for any comments or concerns. And we do have a cover letter. Aaron, is there anything that the staff wants to add to this, or?
I think the key element or the point in the final draft that's been given to you and handed out tonight is that there really hasn't been any substantive changes to the master plan from the draft that was reviewed, I want to say 6 weeks ago, 6 weeks to 2 months ago. We also handed out a kind of update memo about 2 meetings ago that just kind of addressed generally the changes that we had following the public input phase after the first draft was completed. And really, the extent of the changes were with the vision statement. There wasn't really a change, again, substantively to the vision statement, other than it was clarified, I think simplified in some ways. There was translation that was added, including the vision statement, and then the goals for each element of the master plan. We added a definition of terms, and we tried to take some of the, I guess, the planner planeries out of it and make it a little bit more accessible to the wider public. And then adding a little bit more of a regional tone in some places where it made sense, which was some of the feedback that we received. I think a lot of it from the planning board members, yourself, but also from the public. It was really about kind of how the plan was communicated itself rather than the core elements of it. There seemed to be overwhelming, from our perspective, it was pretty satisfying. It was satisfying to see that people were very supportive of the main context or content of the product. So other than that, I didn't didn't prepare a presentation for tonight because it's really, in essence, the same plan that was presented last time.
My notice is on for public hearing. Does anybody want to be heard in regards to the comprehensive new master plan? Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Linehan and board members, I first of all want to say my name is Jay Mason. I'm at 77 Tyler Park in Lowell, in the Highlands. I came right from a site supervision job. And so I didn't want to, I want to make it clear that I didn't intend any disrespect to the board. I just had to come here dusty from my job, and
That's
as a
quite all right,
result,
sir.
this is what you get.
But we're neighborhood friendly, so people come as you are and just voice your concerns.
I understand. I'm an architect. I have a LEED certification, which means that I have a specialization in sustainable and environmentally sensitive aspects of building and development. So we bring that kind of experience to the Green Building Commission. I happen to be one of about 12 members on that commission. We want to work very closely and have a very healthy engagement and dialogue with the planning board and all the other aspects of the city. That's the first thing I want to make clear. We're here to bring our experience and our joint expertise to whatever task we can that involves the sustainability of planning and development, particularly with buildings. The Green Building Commission, for anyone that doesn't know, I just want to give you a quick definition from my perspective, is to promote the expansion of sustainable practices with buildings and related development in Lowell. Provide a clearinghouse for information and education about green practices. Climate change has enormous potential for creating new responses in building and planning. With this master plan, Lowell can begin to position itself as an example for the Merrimack Valley, and as well can provide proactive solutions for its businesses and residents. So that's kind of the perspective that I would bring to the input that we've had so far to the master plan. And if you're interested, I can list a couple of the things that we've raised as points that we thought made sense to talk about and to get designed into that plan. But basically, I really want to support the idea of planning for the future. I think a 2025 plan is very proactive. It's the kind of thing that Lowell can use as a lever to kind of position ourselves relative to the rest of the Merrimack Valley in a favorable way. If we promote ourselves as having a vision towards looking at the future in a rational and a proactive way, I think it'll do us well, and it'll I think kind of expand the reputation and the worth of the city.
As you're speaking, I was looking at the part that talks about the green space and high-quality recreational resources. It's on page 12, and I mean, it talks about that completely, about the green space and talk, getting into how we want to preserve all that area. And obviously, we talk about the green part of it. Obviously, green space is a big part of all that, for the.
Yeah, one of the things we've done is promote the idea of green space with our neighborhood groups. Each neighborhood group intimately is familiar with a green space. They care about it. They garden in it. They work with it. We've done some things. For example, in Tyler Park, we've reached out to ensure that the organic fertilization and pest control has been maintained. And the private group takes care of that. Since the last few years, the city hasn't been able to come up with the funds to do that. But ultimately, one area we'd like to see expanded is that organic fertilization, which has potential to really have great benefit for all these public spaces. I'll just list off a couple of other
Sure,
things.
absolutely, go ahead, sir, absolutely.
We've encouraged the city in the updating of the solid waste ordinance to require recycling citywide. It's not been able to have been done in the past, and it has potential for great benefit, and obviously getting our recycling from, it's probably around, I think, 30% now, something like that, up to 45%. There's no reason we can't do what Worcester is doing. We just have to have a vision to make that happen and act collectively to see a way to create it. We want to look at traffic management and make it possible for. It's funny, we have the example of the Nesmith and Andover Street intersection. That intersection is a bottleneck at rush hour for anybody who's been there, and I'm sure you've all been there recently. If that could be synchronized in perhaps a better way, and I'm not sure, I'm not an engineer, I don't know if it can be done, but areas like that, if we can look at them and burn less carbon while people are sitting there in their stalled vehicles, we'd benefit. Actively seek retailers that have well-established green building standards, perhaps provide green property tax incentives to lure such businesses, encourage large retail developments to be within existing transportation infrastructure. I know we have a green checklist. Aaron's used it. It's been employed with, for example, the Target project. So, those are the kinds of things. I don't want to drag this on, but I did want to make sure that, some of our ideas are out there, promotes a little bit of debate, promotes a little bit of discussion, and I think that's a healthy thing. Include recent green buildings on lists of Lowell significant buildings for walking tours, low-cost public art interventions where artists are in competition to decorate public transportation or recreation, promoting green ideas. There's just a lot of things out there. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of people interested in making things happen. And if we, as a commission, can promote that, can enliven that, can make it more engaged, I think we all can benefit. So,
I think you made a couple of good points about the recycling and all that stuff, because I know you sat here tonight for a long time listening to the project we had on Bridge Street. They talked about they could have private pickup for regular, but Mr. Gentleman said, what about the recycling? And they said, well,
right.
We don't have to make them do that. Well,
Yeah.
why not?
Right.
Why not?
Exactly.
If they're gonna do the private, make them pick up the recycling. Why can't we try to address that issue?
It's not necessarily easy to do, and it's not going to happen overnight. But if you have that statement, well, now you get something you can rest your laurels on, and you can work towards, you can craft something around that. If you don't have it to work with, the crafting can't be done.
And I know when we had this first proposal, I think Aaron and staff brought up how, the part was the early education in the schools, how they're doing all the recycling there. If the younger people do it in the schools, they're gonna bring it home. The next generation moving on have no problem separating the goods in your home,
Right. They're the ones who are gonna bear the responsibility of dealing with climate change, and recycling is number one on the easiest, low-hanging fruit things that you can do. So it's great to see it. So thank you for your time. I appreciate your hearing us out, and if I can answer any questions, I'd certainly be happy to.
Thank you very much. Any boards have any comments on the master plan?
Mr. Chairman, just to Aaron, we did look at this, was it 6 weeks ago? I don't even remember at this point, but, and I know you incorporate, I think it was Mr. Boyle had commented about industry speak being used in some of this and the language changing so that it was a little bit it flowed a little easier for somebody reading it and understanding what was being presented. But there's several zoning issues or initiatives in here. I'm just curious as to, from a DPD's perspective, what is the action plan for, in some of the other master plans we have in the city, that it's a little bit more defined as to what the action plan will be based on some of the initiatives within the document. So I'm just curious, at least from the zoning perspective, is there some design master plan as to what to do with that?
What comes first, right? I think if there's one element in a zoning change or an ordinance change that comes out as a priority, and it's like, as you pointed out, there isn't really a prioritization in this master plan. We do look to the planning board as well as the city council to help us kind of create that priority list. But from the department standpoint, one item that we are really looking at addressing in the short term is the sign code, or the sign design guidelines that are set in the zoning code. Is it part of the zoning code, or is it a separate ordinance? Is it part of that discussion? But that's definitely one of the things that we want to see early on. I know from the zoning board's perspective, they've been asking for this for a number of years, and it's a little dated, it's hard to work with, and there's a number of sign types that aren't even addressed in it because of technological changes that we just kind of have to deal on an ad hoc basis.
And
So that's
some of
one
the issues that are addressed within the zoning code are clearly ignored. So that's a whole other issue.
Correct, it makes enforcement difficult, frankly. So that's one of the reasons we want to get that updated, so we can be a little bit more proactive than I think we've been able to because of the ambiguities in it. So that's definitely one of them. We've also talked on this board about some of the transition zoning districts between regional retail and a more traditional commercial district. So there's a couple areas, particularly corridors, Ryder Street being one of them, Middlesex Street is another one that we deal with a lot, where it's regional retail now, but it seems to be a pretty bright line between the regional vehicular-centric kind of commercial uses and the more mixed-use, pedestrian scale of the traditional mixed-use or neighborhood business district.
Now, what intrigues me is the urban agricultural zoning. I mean, what's the plan on moving forward on something like that?
I think one of the things that is being addressed by a lot of communities in Massachusetts and nationally, but when we are seeing in a kind of wide variety of types of communities, is the potential of having chickens and a small number of chickens on your property. Not roosters, just hens, to lay eggs as a way of maybe in some cases supplementing income, but I think it's more for just producing eggs for your own home. That's something that is, interestingly enough, it's becoming, I don't want to say vogue, but we're seeing more common in planning departments. I know Town of Arlington has an ordinance that allows a small number of chickens for eggs. So, those kinds of interventions and maybe even thinking at a more community scale or neighborhood scale where you could have a community garden for small ag, that sort of thing, where you might be growing vegetables that you could take home.
What I'm looking for is, with the adoption of this document, is just, and what we talked about, I was very active in the original master plan, but making sure that it wasn't a document that sat on the shelf that read very nicely. So I was just a little concerned, though, with not a clear prioritization of items and how they will be acted upon. So, whether that gets handed to the city council zoning subcommittee, whether it's the DPD that's going to be driving that. Just a little curious, and
Sure.
And I'd love to bring some attention to it in this process, so that it just doesn't become an idea in a document.
No, I appreciate it, because I think that's critical. I mean, we all spent 2.5 years on this. I would hate for it to sit on the shelf. So I think, to answer your question, there's a number of different entities that I think are critical in implementing this plan. Some of it's city council would, through the zoning committee, through the planning board, but I think a lot of it will be, a lot of the driving force for implementation will be through planning and development. A lot of the core activities that we do will have to be spearheaded by us, whether it's through interaction with the city council or the planning board, zoning board. other departments in the city. We've worked really hard in interacting with all the city departments so that we have their feedback, so that they're vested in this product and willing to implement it on their own volition. There's elements in here that they can act on without DPD having to, kind of shepherd it along. It's something that they can incorporate it. So it's not necessarily one department, and I think that's what one of the challenges was in developing an implementation plan where we prioritize things one by one. It's really going to be a multifaceted kind of implementation, and it's going to be a challenge to oversee that. But I think where we can use some help is, perhaps a regular report to the planning board.
I would, on the zoning issues, I would like something like
We
that
could,
again. I think if you don't do that, I think it just doesn't happen. It's just.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's probably not in here.
It's
It
not,
probably should have
yeah.
been in here.
No.
But, something where there's an annual or biannual report to the planning board on some, on particularly the critical areas, the key core areas that the planning board is overseeing. But, this is your document. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a great idea and can help keep us focused on implementation.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Aaron, is the Tanner Street project detailed in here at all, and in conjunction with that, the light industrial zone? I know there's some issues with that. Is that addressed here?
Yeah, it's specifically referenced in here. It's, I believe it's under healthy and sustainable economy. It starts at page 83.
Okay.
But it's specifically referenced as the plan itself as a key objective in moving for a more diverse economic development strategy. So looking at light industrial uses, innovative kind of uses that might be a little bit more messy, a little bit noisier, might need a little bit more space. And that the Tanner Street is a critical opportunity. It references it so that whatever comes out of that process is the objective. It doesn't, I guess, foreshadow what the outcome of that is, but references it so that when that process is done, we know exactly what it is, and that's the final objective with that plan. So, short answer is yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Bob, any questions about the master plan? No? David, Joe, any questions about the master plan?
Pretty well conceived.
Oh, yeah, great job.
I just had a couple comments, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Mason for coming down here and sharing his thoughts with us and surviving through a long night here of debate on the planning board. I know Mr. Mason has been toiling in relative obscurity for many, many years regarding the environmental issues, and I want to thank him for his commitment to the city. And I hope that you were proud of me by requiring recycling of that applicant here tonight. Good news. Thanks. So, and I just want to say that I think this, I'm very impressed with the fact that we develop a document like this. It's always, will we achieve Lowell 2025 as it's, written in this document? Maybe not 100%. But it's always good to have a goal and a lofty goal that we strive for. I think Mr. Frechette brings up a great point in that we can't let it sit around and collect dust. We really need to make it actionable. And I hope that the city council and the city manager will take this opportunity to sort of start driving efforts within the city to fit within this framework and track those so that we can, maybe on an annual basis, say as a city, here's what we've done so far, here's what we have left to do. And that's not something that's within the purview of this board, but the zoning issues are. So I think it's a great idea to report regularly and kind of drive our piece of the pie, within this board. So I think it's a great document. And the other thing, this is available online, Aaron, right?
That's correct. It is. It's actually, I think it's one of the first tabs you see when you get on lowellma.gov, which is the city's webpage.
So I would encourage anybody that's interested out there to download it or look at it. Don't download it because we don't print it. We don't want to burn any more trees, but take a look at it and read through it because it's really an excellent read and it's encouraging for the city.
Joe, any questions, comments?
I had one comment about implementation and how to make sure that this plan doesn't just sit on a shelf. One thing we can do as a board is to take the lead on that and to really familiarize ourselves with this document and use it as a guide to our decision-making. Let's, when we're reviewing a project, when we're looking at a zoning proposal, let's evaluate it in terms of its conformance with this document. Let's see if it helps to, look at the goals and objectives, look at the visions, and talk about what they are, what a proposal does and or what it does not do and what it could do specifically to advance the vision and the action steps and the objectives discussed in this plan. Let's, a comprehensive master plan is many things, one of which is a guide for decision makers. So let's really embrace this for the workings of our own board, and that can be a start in making sure that this is a living, breathing document that does play an important role in this city.
Okay, so I know we need a motion to approve it. What's the wish of the board? You want to?
Chairman, I'll make a motion that-
I'll make a motion that we,
I'll second that.
comprehensive master plan as presented.
I'll second that, Mr.
Motion is
Chairman.
made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. That plan is adopted. And as I noted by the letter, it goes before the council at their meeting, what I believe, coming up next week sometime, or?
It's actually tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, okay.
Tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah, fine, okay.
Quick turnaround.
Okay, so moving along now, I'm back to ZBA notices, which I jumped ahead of by mistake. We have three. I'm just gonna jump ahead. The second two are the ones that we discussed tonight, which are the variances for 401 Bridge Street and 14 and 16 Third Street. I'll make a motion that we approve both of those with the comments that we made on the site plan and the special permit.
I'll second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, those recommendations are adopted. We have one other matter, which is 226 Central Street, to renovate the top two floors of the building into a total of 4 residential units in accordance with the table of uses. We do have a copy of the plan that was given to us at the last meeting. Anybody have any comments on this matter?
On one lot,
Yeah, they need a special permit for 4 to 6 units on the one lot, so, well, I think they have what, renovation of the top 2 floors into residential units. I don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns on this. It says the proposed development is in conformance with the master plan for the city of Lowell, what the applicant says.
The development of upper
course
story
it is.
residential
So should we use
units
that
on
guide to-
Central Street could not possibly be more in conformance with the vision of the comprehensive master plan. We should enthusiastically endorse a proposal to do so.
And the parking is covered according to the notation.
So do we have a recommendation that we want to get to the ZBA on this matter?
What's the variances for?
Special permit for 4 to 6 units on one lot. So they need a special permit, I think, before the ZBA? Yeah, so they're not looking for a variance, they're looking for a special permit.
Existing building,
Yeah,
Correct.
no, the parking requirement?
Is that the one?
covered through city garages, it says,
Yeah, I think they say they got an agreement through the city garage or something.
yeah.
So that if there's so many feet from the garage, they can park in the garage, I think, Bob, is what it is?
Yeah, they have to lease
We're
one
going
space
from-
per unit.
But- I'm sorry?
They have to lease one space per unit.
1 space per unit?
Is that all?
And then what, yeah, then they have to give
Yeah.
that as a condition for the ZBA, that they have that available, right? Okay.
No problem with that.
I don't either. I make a motion that we, what do we need? Do we need a motion?
Yeah, you need a motion whether we want to, recommendation in favor or against, or whatever.
Mr. Chairman, so it's, we're going from 4 to 6 units on the top floor of a building on Central Street?
It's,
Is that what I'm seeing here?
Renovation of the top 2 floors into residential units, yeah. Renovate,
4 to 6 units.
4 to 6 units is the use, is the land use. It's not going from 4 to 6, it's the range, 4 to 6.
yeah, there's a copy of the plan in here, right? Yeah.
Chairman, if I may, the use category in the zoning code is 4 to 6 units, but they're proposing 4 units for the building, 2 units on the second floor and 2 units on the third floor,
Okay.
with commercial on the ground floor.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of this project.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Any opposition? Hearing none, the recommendation is adopted. Moving along on, let's see, do we have any comments from any further board members or from DPD?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just an announcement for anybody that's, if there's anybody still listening, and for any board members.
Including board members?
Including board members.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
I have some.
Thursday evening on the 21st at 6:30 PM at the Lowell General Hospital at the Clark Auditorium. There will be a public meeting regarding the Rourke Bridge Wood Street corridor. And the proposed, I believe there's 5 different proposals for locations for the new permanent bridge. And so they're just encouraging people to come out and looking for input as to the most desired location for the new bridge. So we're getting closer to the final design at this point, and again, I would encourage anybody that's interested to attend the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chet. Mr. Lockhart, you have a
Yeah,
comment?
just from the historic board, I want to report on a few items. We will be addressing non-conforming signage and minimum maintenance needs in the downtown Lowell Historic District in the coming weeks. Now that spring is coming, although we're about to get a snowstorm, we'll be focusing on that over the next 2 to 3 weeks, now that the good weather is here. New urban infill in the form of a residential building on Perkins Street is being constructed that complements ongoing work by the same developer who is rehabilitating 2 of the 3 remaining historic properties in the Lawrence Mill Yard. That's right across the street from the baseball park. And I think we all know that the Lowell Community Health Center has been opened, but and it's a $42 million facility in the Hamilton Mill Yard. It's interesting to note that the project utilized both federal and state rehabilitation tax credits. And also, just one other item, the remaining portions of the Boot Mill Yard are in the process of being rehabilitated, and when completed, 100% of that mill yard will have been rehabilitated and put into active reuse. Those are just some of the things that we've been watching over the past month.
Thank you for that update. Anybody else, any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to return to to an item that we handled earlier tonight regarding our decision on the 3rd Street project, the Bridge Street, 3rd Street project. One of the conditions on that item was that the applicant would work with the DPD on exterior details on the 3rd Street building in order to, and Mr. Lockhart originally brought up this condition, in order to maintain that line of, in order to maintain that building line. I just wanted to make sure my understanding of that is correct and that our intentions are clear for the staff, that we are, that the intention there was to give them our authority and our direction to require any sort of exterior work, any detailing and features that would be appropriate to maintain that consistency, that dimensional consistency on that line. Would just like to make sure that my understanding is consistent with the board and that I'm not over-interpreting that condition.
Oh,
Is
I
that
think that's accurate.
That was your intention,
Yeah.
Mr. Lockhart? Okay, I understood that to be an
no,
intention. I did not raise a separate condition regarding porches because I understood that to be encompassed by Mr. Lockhart's condition. And I wanted to make sure that I was not misunderstanding the board's intention when we voted for that condition. Seems that Mr. Lockhart is nodding his head that I seem to have the correct
Yeah.
understanding. Okay,
Just
okay.
to pay
good.
attention to
Just-
those setbacks and try to be as consistent as we can, that's all.
Okay,
If I just could add a little bit of clarity, because I want to make sure I understand it as we move forward and work with the applicant on this, is that the condition doesn't require that street line to be kept 100%, it's just work with the applicant to try to formalize or strengthen that street line, is that it?
Yeah, in whatever way you
whatever
guys
way
think is appropriate.
Okay.
staff finds appropriate.
Put
Okay.
porches on it, fine.
And I think part of it was the architectural that you had to comment on, was it number 10 or 11 or something like that, that was incorporated with it?
Okay,
You know
all
what I
right,
mean?
so the condition isn't that there
You have
needs
to
to
bring
be,
them right to the street line, right?
or other, okay,
No,
Yeah.
not,
other
It
architectural.
was to work with
I
them
got
and
it.
also fix up that,
you gotta be
the
reasonable.
architectural stuff there. I think you had a question about doing the 2 feet, bringing in, and he was gonna drop down part of the, building to make it look a little better, I think he commented
Yeah.
about.
Okay.
3 feet.
Any further comments? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion's made and seconded.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, boy.